Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is hautemesstom, and I used all my makeup in 31 days. If you are new to my channel is all about loving my collection as it is, being critical of new makeup releases, and being extra careful about the things that we decide to bring into our makeup collection. So if that content sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. I am also on Patreon if you want to support me there, and I do appreciate likes on this channel. This one's lengthy, okay? Lengthy. I know that. I have put everything into little chapters for you down below. So if you clicked on this video because you're like interested in certain things, please check down there to find your way should you not want to watch however long this. I literally do not know how long this video is going to be, but I know it's a doozy because I'm already editing other parts of it and I already have plenty of footage that is going to be edited into this video. What happened? What was going on? How did I end up doing this? What was I thinking? Very good question. Probably should call my therapist. Let's do a little retrospective, shall we? I started a 6-month no-buy in July, and it went to the end of December. When I created the no-buy situation, my plan was to get to know my makeup collection a lot better because I have so much beautiful makeup. I really wanted to get to know it better. I really wanted to downsize my collection, not to like anything minimal, but just like I wanted to know my collection better. And I whipped through 5 months of my 6-month no-buy, and I still didn't know my collection much better than I did beforehand. I did a video in November where I called it something to the effect of trying to foster a relationship with makeup I currently have no relationship with. And I was doing that video and I had been thinking about how I wanted to try as a challenge to post videos every day in the month of December. And the two ideas kind of like collided as one thing. So in that video, I was trying to, yes, foster a relationship with makeup that I didn't currently have a relationship with. But there's so much makeup in my collection that I did not have a relationship with where I was like, this will work as a month-long project. The project is separate. I said Messmas. I kept calling it Messmas. Messmas was more that I'm posting 31 days and then the project, henceforth known as the project. Oh my god, it's like a like a legal brief. Henceforth known as the project. Let me describe the project to you. The project was this. I wanted to use every piece of makeup I owned in that time limit in 31 days. How I was going to do it is once I used one of my pieces of makeup, I could not use it again until I completely used up that category. For example, I had about 5 bronzing products. Once I used those bronzing products, through 5 different days, on the 6th day I could pull out all of my bronzers and cycle through them again and try them again. What this would do is encourage me to use products that I don't often use. This led to some exciting discoveries, which we will discuss further down the road in this video. I spent the whole month of December putting on makeup every single day, recording that makeup application, editing it, and then posting it the next day. So if you want to recap that entire series, that playlist is linked down below. Go ahead and check that out. It's a lot of fun, and like obviously not all of it is like talking about makeup, most of it is. So the approach was when I would use the makeup, I was kind of pretending that I didn't know about it, right? I'm experiencing it for the first time. Now this kind of thought, it evolved throughout. Like it wasn't so specific. Like at first I was like sniffing things and pretending it was like a first impression. Quite honestly, there were a few things that I used throughout this project that I hadn't used but had been in my collection for years. This was me getting to know my collection better. What I'm going to do is send you to some overhead footage. The overhead footage in the chapters down below, you'll be able to see what they are about. I broke it down to category by category. And essentially this also kind of functions if you want to know what my makeup collection is, if you like a makeup collection video, if you just want to see it, this is also a good way to learn that stuff as well. I'm going to review every single thing as I remember using it in the project. There's a section where I talk about all the things I decluttered through the project because yes, as I was using things and if I didn't like them and I didn't see a space for them in my collection, I decluttered them as I was going. So at the end of each video, I would kind of like do mini reviews of everything and how I felt putting them on that day. So sometimes I would declutter things and then sometimes I would find brand new favorite things that I didn't know that were in my collection. There's also a section of stuff that I actually did not succeed in using all of my makeup in the 31 days. So there's a little category down there with like stuff that I wasn't able to get to and kind of reflecting on that and feelings of that. Then it's kind of just like item by item, category by category. We go through every single thing. They're brief overviews. I'm not sitting there and like trying to detail a long explanation. So if you were there for the whole ride, if you like participated in the project while it was happening in real time, you're not going to really learn much more. But if you want to spend some time with me and just refresh and see everything again, this is a great way to do that as well. I'm gonna send you over to that footage and then we'll come back and we will get some final thoughts from me and my feelings. So these are all the things that I have decluttered throughout the project. I just wanted to show you all of them on screen. This is the end of the road of these projects in my collection, which is very exciting. But these two items right here did not actually show up during Messmas. I decluttered these right before Messmas. I was doing a declutter series on my channel leading into my project for December. And before I started the project, I wanted to see if I wanted to get rid of any palettes before I started the project because I didn't want them to be something I needed to use, even if I knew in my heart of hearts that I wasn't interested in. So the first up I have is the Sugar Pill Capsule. This is the second one, Capsule 2. And I had Capsule 1 and I had decluttered that a while ago. I held on to this one because I did like that there was some more neutrals in it than with like the pop of colors also in here. However, I never reach for it, just like never reach for it. It's not that I don't like the quality. It's not that I'm not interested in it. And I even really like this blush, but there's just no reason for me to be keeping this in my collection. And I know that there's someone else out there who would enjoy this way more than me. And it could be like, it's just not for me. I think this is dirty on the inside, so I will clean this up. But this is the Makeup by Mario Metals palette. So during my project, I did play with my Mehron mixing medium quite a bit more. However, I don't think I'll ever use this. I will never pull this out over my Cliona shadows or anything else. Like if I want a metallic eye, I'm not coming here for that. And I think this could be something very special in someone else's collection, but for mine, it's not for me. Throughout the project, obviously, I tried a bunch more things in my collection, and I am going to just briefly walk through why I decluttered everything one more time, just to remind myself, and to just tell you as well. So I'm going to move this way. So the first thing I have, this is the Laura Mercier Glow Setting Powder. Now, they released a different glow setting powder this past year, and people were very confused about that. I was just as confused about this. This is the latest shade of this. I don't even know if they make this anymore. However, it did make my skin a little bit darker. I am rather fair, so but I did kind of like the glowing effect. I don't think that it was like too sparkly. It did remind me of the ambient lighting powders from Hourglass, but I have those and I prefer those, which is why I decided to get rid of this. The Kimchi the Most concealer. The first thing that I don't really like about it is the applicator, but because it's a brush, but it's also attached to a squeezy tube, and I just like don't care for that. However, I didn't mind this concealer, but I didn't love this concealer, and I found so many complexion products that I absolutely loved during this project. So by the second time, I don't know if this made it through my first round or made it all the way to my second round of using my concealers, but this one was just like it wasn't it for me. The Clinique Even Better concealer, this made it through twice, but I decided to declutter it because it reminded me a lot of the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, which I also have in my collection, and I just like that one a smidgen better. I have worn this a couple of times, like for outside of this project, and it does kind of get really creasy and doesn't really set under my eye, even with powder. It didn't really, so it just like didn't perform the way I needed it to. This Touche Éclat High Cover Concealer, it's just the wrong shade, and that's why I didn't keep it. The Bounce foundation is just a little too dark for me. I actually really like this formula, but I couldn't make it work just with how dark it is for me. I think I got matched to it when I was really tan, and I probably haven't been tan since that summer. This YSL Soft Glow Matte Lipstick, it was really uncomfortable on my lips, and it's interesting because it didn't set down like a matte, so it was uncomfortable for no reason, and I just didn't care for that, and I don't have time for that in my life. This Tenti Dole Ultra Wear Concealer from Lancome, this was the thickest, just so thick. I imagine if you have spots that you want to spot conceal, that this would be very nice, but I only really use concealer under my eyes to brighten, and it just wasn't good for that. So I feel like this is probably a great product that wasn't made for what I wanted it for. The Milk Makeup Flex Foundation Stick. This gave my skin no life. It made my skin just look really flat, and while sometimes it would look okay once I put other products on top of it, overall, it was just like not a very good foundation for me. The only time it looked very nice was whenever I used a very nice primer over top of it. So that's kind of pointless to me. I don't want a foundation that needs to be paired with specific things to be a good product. The Lancome Tenti Dole. I actually think I decluttered this before I started this project because I still have one of these in my collection. I just had two of them in my collection. I didn't need both. I think I also may have decluttered this before the project. I really didn't keep what I was decluttering during the project out of what I was decluttering from my collection otherwise. So I think that's what's happened here. I just confused myself a little bit. The Pat McGrath Labs Blur Powder. Now I did a dedicated video to this when I decluttered it. The Chantecaille is better, and I have that in my collection. This was really nice for the under eye and actually blurred more than the Chantecaille did. However, this leaves like a white cast, and it is super dry. It's not my favorite. I would rather reach for the Chantecaille and have the ability to use it all over the face as opposed to only explicitly having a blur powder for the under eye. I think that's just that's too many things. This is another thing I think I decluttered before the project. So I'm just going to move along from that because I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. The Tom Ford Quad and Photo Synthesex. I really, really like green eyeshadow, and I have a lot of nice green eyeshadows, and while this shade is very special and very beautiful, the other shades are not things that I need in my collection, and I would never reach for this quad to do just to look with it. I really like the look I did whenever I was viewing the project, but there's no need for me to keep this because I can dupe this 100 times over. I don't know that I have anything in my collection quite like this shade, but things that are close enough that can fill this gap easily in my collection. This was something that I just had in my drawer. This is definitely like a deluxe size sample from NYX. This is their Bear With Me Hydrating Jelly Primer. I think if this was something I used very early on in the project, if I remember correctly, it was just it was neither here nor there, and I really didn't like the texture or the sound that it made when you squirted it out. So it just wasn't. It's not for me. This Rare Beauty Primer, this is the Illuminating Primer Base. It has a lot of sparkles in it for no reason, and I just think that it's an illusion rather than a true hydrating, leaving your skin plump primer. It felt nice enough, but I think all it did is just made my skin feel okay, and I don't think that it did anything special for the foundation that I ended up putting over it. This definitely was a matter of I got this in gratis. I never really tried it, didn't want to try it, wasn't using my makeup enough to ever get around to it, and so once I did try it, I was oh, this is not something that I need. The Milk Makeup Hydro Grip. Now you can see this has a lot of usage. If you are new here, at some point I really did like this, but It's not for me. I think the person that this is going to be really good for is like people who perform, have to be on stage. It's very tacky and it does really grip the foundation. But I think for the everyday makeup wearer, the person who just wants to look gorgeous on the go, I don't think this does a lot for us. So unless you like are very sweaty or like you have a problem with makeup moving around your face, you might like this more. But for me, this is just like not the kind of thing that I want to reach for on a regular basis. I really like something hydrating that makes my skin feel just like plump and ready for makeup application. And while this definitely gives you like a nice barrier over top of the skin, it isn't anything particularly special. So that is why I ended up getting rid of that. This concealer was awful. This is the Beauty Blender Bounce Concealer. I put it under my eyes. It clung to texture. It seemed to like add its own texture. It was like very matte, very drying. I have matte full coverage concealers that I have enjoyed, and this was like certainly not one of them. And there's something really just like aggressive about this applicator that I just like don't like it. I felt like I can't control the amount of product I'm putting on, and I wouldn't need that much product for something like this. So this is just like not welcome in my collection anymore. The Naked Foundation, this was something that I really thought I was going to hold on to when I was doing the project, but I used it a couple times on the project and kind of like the Milk one, but not as bad. It just like didn't really do much for me. Like it has nice coverage, it has a nice finish, but there's so many other foundations that when I was cycling through that I was really excited to use, and I was mostly meh every time I use this. And I only really want things in my collection that are like powerhouses, power stars, and things that I want to use all of the time. And that is not what this is. Even though I used quite a bit of it, and definitely there was a time where I really liked this foundation, my preferences just have changed quite a bit. I like less coverage. I like a more either like satin or radiant finish to my foundations, even though I am someone who has oily skin. That is my preference when it comes to foundations. And this just doesn't really give me that. It's not a bad foundation. And I could see why people would really like this foundation, but it's just like not my foundation, not my perfect foundation. All Hours foundation from Yves Saint Laurent or YSL Beauty. This is like a perfectly nice foundation. It's very thick. It's very full coverage. That's not really my jam. And I had some other full coverage foundations that were also matte that I liked the feel of and the finish of better than this one. So I just don't think that this foundation is like worth the splurge, but I could also see why people really like this one. Like it was never bad, but I was never excited to reach for it. And when I even decluttered this, I was pulling things out of the box. I had just gone through all of my foundations and was pulling my foundations out to cycle through them again. And I like picked this one up and I was like, this does not bring me joy and I don't want to continue to use it. And that is why I ended up getting rid of it. This quad from Pat McGrath. The thing about my collection is that I have some beautiful, wonderful Cliona shades, and they're in packaging now that I can see them through the packaging, and I can't see this, and it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind situation. However, I like these two shades and they perform like the way I want them to. I'm not really interested in this gold at all, and this purple shade feels really weird. It doesn't feel like these two. This one definitely has a lot more black in it, and I'm wondering if that is the reason. So even though I was really able to make a very nice liner with this, it's just one of those things that I think would be better in someone else's collection. While these are very beautiful, while I think these are very nice eyeshadows, they weren't really adding anything into my collection anymore because I have surpassed them in beauty with some other items. And so that's just like why this isn't for me. Although I will say this, the packaging on this quad is much better than the packaging on the quad I ended up keeping. So I don't know what the deal with that is, because like this one has a gold back and it feels a little bit thicker and a little bit more substantial than the other one. So I just wanted to point that out. Subculture. The thing is, I have another eyeshadow palette in my collection called the Antiquities palette from Noctex, which is also a discontinued eyeshadow palette. Here's the deal with this one though. These have hard pan. I really like the mattes in here. They're really beautiful. However, the reason the Antiquities palette stays in my collection and not Subculture is that the Antiquities palette, I can remove those pans. So when I want to make my own color stories, it's going to be a lot easier for me to use that. And I don't need this redundancy in my collection because this is just not as adaptable in my collection as the Antiquities palette. And so while I'm very fond of this palette and I'm glad I've like had it for this long, it's certainly time for it to leave my collection. And so this is the Burberry Warm Glow #1. This is a bronzer that I had for 5 years and I never panned it. And I just had decided that its time was now to get rid of. And the reason is just because once I started bringing other bronzers into my collection, I just want to reach for those more. And I'm not someone who feels compelled to have a lot of bronzers because I feel like my bronzers all kind of do the same thing. And while I did learn that I prefer like a shimmer or a sheen to my bronzer, and this is certainly a matte bronzer, I wasn't reaching for this really at all. So I am going to destroy this for a little bit of fun, just to see how far away from the pan I was. Like, I'm just very curious. This bronzer served me really well, and I'm happy that I put it in this project and like gave it a couple more hurrahs before I decided to actually depart with it. I am going to keep this packaging because like this is some kind of like, this is like makeup memory, but I am going to scrape the, destroy it, take the product out, and then probably use this for like a display piece. And then if down the line I decide that this is not something I want to keep around just for a display, then I will just dispose of it. But I thought it would be fun to just keep for now. The packaging, not the product. Because I have so much makeup, I wasn't actually able to get to everything in the 31 days. Now, I excluded my singles from the project before I even started the project. That was like part of my rules. So I will just show you these really quick. So the plan for my single shadows in the new year is going to be this. I'm going to make some of my own color stories with my singles that I have. And then I'm going to use them for like a month or so. And then I'm going to, or like 2 weeks or so, and then cycle in some new of my singles. This is in hopes to get to touch all of my single shadows over the course of time and hopefully declutter some things. Because there are definitely some things in here that I see that I'm like, oh, I don't know that I necessarily need them. And it'll be nice to touch because whenever I'm doing that project, I'll be very cognizant of whether or not I have these shades elsewhere in my collection or if it's even warrants me having them as singles. So yeah, like the plan is to use this little guy right here and fill it with some singles that I intend to use. But right now, this has some Cleona shades in here from a project a while ago. Very messy stuff. Here are some more of my singles. So here are my Cleona singles. I talked a lot about these during it, and I did use some of these actually during the project whenever I was using a palette that was all matte. So they did get a little bit used, but they were not really part of the project. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my single shadows from this frame because they seem to be glaring everything back into the screen. This is a backup of the Too Faced Born This Way concealer, which I have settled that I do enjoy. However, I feel like I still have a lot of the one I have left. It's not my favorite concealer anymore. And I bought this back up because I was fairly certain I was going to run through it. And then another year passed where I did not run through it. So this is brand new. I've not opened this or swatched this. So I'm just going to pass this on to someone brand new. Again, like this concealer, it's not the first thing I would want to run out and purchase whenever I am at that point with concealer where I feel like I need to go buy something. This is not what I'm going to buy. So I'm just going to declutter this. This Jouer palette, does not belong to me. So I didn't put it in the project because it wasn't technically my makeup. So I like this blush palette, but I didn't include it just for that reason because my friend let me borrow this so I could fuss with this shade, which I really enjoy. The Grand Pro Volume 1X from Viseart. The importance of this in my collection is whenever I'm making my own color stories or if I'm trying to dupe out a palette that I'm very inspired by, I like having this as a base for the mattes. So I can pull my mattes from my other singles too because I have some more fun matte shades. But whenever I need a matte shade, this is like very high quality, very good shades. And you'll see my Hindash palette later, which I also feel like fulfills a very similar space in my collection to this. Not exact, because, you know, Hindash doesn't have like a blue like this. And like to get a red or like a purple like that, you'd have to like do some mixing with the Hindash palette. So they hold a very different place. Like, I'm not really gonna pull this out to play with other things. This really is to when I'm duping something, or I want to make my own color story, when I want to pull some neutral mattes. This is like where I'm going to run to, and not anywhere else. The Lethal is Dead palette from Lethal Cosmetics and Teresa is Dead. The reason I did not use this in the project is once I was getting closer to the end of the project and I needed to cut things out of the project in order to be successful or achieve what I wanted to do. This palette I had recently used quite a bit because I was trying to figure out whether or not it was a purchase that I wanted in my collection anymore. It was the last thing I bought before my 6-month no-buy, and I like just didn't know how I felt about it. Like, I definitely bought this because I really like Teresa. This color story is not my favorite, but another nice thing about this palette is these also are magnetic, so I can pop these out and use these as singles with other things, and I like the quality of them quite a bit. It's just I do lean more neutral, and then like if I want a bright, it's like a pop of it, and I'm not gonna do all of this. However, every look I have made with this has come off a more neutral than expected, but these shades are like lighter than you think they are. There's not a lot of depth here, even though like this looks really deep and this looks really deep. They end up looking like mid-tone whenever you're putting them on the eye. So this is not just it's not my favorite, but I did remove it from the project because I know that I wanted to keep it, and I also know how I felt about these shadows because I do think they're high quality shadows. I think Lethal shadows are very nice. But if I were to try Lethal again, if I were to do it for the first time again and try their shadows again, this would not be the route I would have taken. But I think the collaboration with Teresa and Lethal is very cool. It fulfills a lot of fantasies, even though it doesn't, too. The Viseart Dark Edit, this palette got removed from the project because, much like the Grand Pro, I know that I like Viseart shadows, so I know that I like the quality of these. And there was just no point for me to like continue to explore this beyond what I know about it. So I also like that these are singles too. I can pop these out and put them in other palettes if I ever want mattes, these mattes in there. So it fills that part of my collection, and that is why I'm keeping it, but I was also okay not using it in the project. And I've used this palette by itself and I enjoy it. So it's like another situation where like I had a little bit more of a relationship with this palette than some of the other things I had in my collection, which is why it did not make it in. At one point, I thought I was going to be able to like work glitters into a lot more looks than I did, but I think glitter is something that most people use sparingly unless you're like a drag performer or you just like really like glitter. No judgment there. But I like learned about myself that I don't want glitter in every look, even though I somehow always have glitter remnant on me. And I did use quite a few of the glitters throughout the project, but these are just the ones I didn't get to. I don't really feel bad about not getting to glitters because it's not something I'm using every day and they don't really go bad. This single from Pat McGrath is called Lapis Luxury. And it's very pretty and teal. And I was going to use this with the Melt Muerte palette when I was doing that look. But then the look I decided to do didn't warrant this. And that was the very last day of the project. And so this kind of just got bumped out of being used because of that. And it is a single shadow, so I can definitely try to use it with my other singles. But it is in its own casing and this isn't magnetic. To depot this would be kind of difficult. And I know these shadows are soft because I had to push both this and my other Pat McGrath single back into the packaging before with my finger because they are so soft. Beautiful eyeshadow, just didn't get to it during the project. And then these. These were kind of the bane of my existence because I don't really care for like water activated paints. So I just like, I don't think I'm ever going to use this. And so I'm going to declutter this because I don't love a water activated paint and I don't know. I have used this before. Obviously you can see that there are like divots and dips in there, but I think my friend Tiffany would actually appreciate this a lot more than me. So I'm going to go see if she wants it, but this isn't for me. And then these Danessa Myricks things intimidate me. I have used them a couple of times, but what I'm going to do in a new project in 2022, God, what year is it? So for a project for 2022, I am going to do like a top drawer, and the top drawer will be full of things that I want to challenge myself to use that month and get more use out of. And I definitely want to do that. But I also want to use that top drawer during my makeup playtime off camera a lot. And I think I want to do like with no other things on my face, just play with these and see what I can do with them and like create a safe space for me to explore these products. And I didn't, not that anyone was rude while I was doing my project during Messmas or during the December month. I'm just, my confidence with these is not very high. And so that is why I didn't really want to use them during the project. And I pulled them out so many times where I was like, okay, I'm going to really punch it up with these, but I never did. These are the Color Fix Neon Mattes. I have the shades Jelly Bean and Rainbow. And I do want the yellow one because I still want a UV glow yellow. I just don't want it in that form. So I can't wait to play with these a little bit more, but I'm also nervous too. But I do want to play with brights again a little bit more during the new year, during this year, because they're really fun. Brights are really fun, but it's just like something I don't play with that often. So these are all the primers that initially survived the project. This is the Surratt Beauty Perfectioniste Primer. This is a deluxe size sample I got when I purchased the Dewdrop Foundation. I would never buy this for $95, but this is fine. I don't know how better else to describe it other than it's fine. I don't mind using it. I intend on using up the rest of this sample, but I would never pay $95 for it. And the only reason I'm saying that is like Laneige, which this is a glowing makeup serum. This is $32 for the full size, but I would sooner want to pay $95 for this than want to pay $95 for this. And that's just kind of my problem with it. However, it does feel nice. It makes your skin feel nice. I feel like it makes your makeup look okay, like but it's just fine. And if it's just fine, then we shouldn't be paying $95 for it, which is a little bit upsetting because I find that the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation is like really worth the $75. So I don't know what goes on with this. The Urban Decay All Nighter Primer. I really like this primer. It's very nice. It has like a nice grip to it, but it still feels like a lotion gel on the skin. It feels very nourishing when you're putting it on. I like that it has a pump, and I think this is a good alternative to the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base, which I also have here, but everything's gonna roll away. It's really nice. I'm excited to use it all up. It's a very nice primer. The Air Atelier Face Primer. This is probably the primer that I'm most iffy on keeping around because it's really hit or miss depending on what I use. So if I use something that's super, super illuminating, this is a really nice primer. But if I use something that's gonna be matte on top of it, then I do not like it. So I think that I can definitely make this work. I really, really liked it whenever I used the Glossier Skin Tint. It looked really nice underneath that. So I think I just need to be cognizant of which foundation I am putting on top of this. The Pat McGrath Labs Primer. This one was a little bit of a funny one. I was complaining about it when I first started using it in the project, but primers we kind of got to go through many, many times. And as the project continued, I like this more and more. Would I buy this again? I don't think I would, but I'm happy to finish it. And that's a good place to land. So I did buy it. I'm looking forward to finishing it. This is going to be, after I finish the Surratt, this will be a focus to finish up. If you aren't watching this project that I did in real time, you won't understand, but this primer was actually in my skincare, like my backup skincare. And I was like, oh, I bet this would work really nice as a primer. It's like called Glowing Makeup Serum. That's probably what it's for. And I tried it and it is so good. It is so good. This was one of those things where when I found this, I was like, oh, this is really what doing this project is all about, is finding things like this. This is such a beautiful primer. It goes under matte foundations very well. It goes under glowy foundations really well. And I'm an oily skin person, and it's not like it makes your skin look dewy, but it just like preps your skin in the most beautiful way for makeup. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous, like a gorgeous, gorgeous girl. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous product for gorgeous, gorgeous girls. we stand. It'll be interesting to see something knock this off of the throne that it currently lives on in my head. But I do want to try Ritual Defy primer oil. I forget what it's called, but the red primer oil. So I might try that. Like once I get through a few of these primers, I might grab that and do a comparison with them. Let me know if you would be interested in that if you want to hang around my channel. Let me know if that's something that you would like to see in the future. This came into the project being my favorite, and it's still leaving my favorite. This is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. I would say if I only wanted to have 2 primers in my collection right now, of the primers I've tried throughout my whole life, these would be the 2 primers that would be the ones that would be the only 2 I keep in my collection. We like the variety of life, right? So it's nice to have some other primers, but once I get through some of these primers, I think I'm going to keep my primers at like 3 to 4 in my collection. But anyway, back to the Vitamin Rich Face Base. It smells delightful. It has a beautiful grip. It feels so good on the skin. It just enhances anything you put on top of it. The hype for this product is truly, truly real. I don't know that I'll find something that will knock this off its pedestal, but I'm happy to try new primers. I'm going to try new primers this year. We just have to get through some other things first, but this is a delight to use, and we're at the bottom there, so we will see how much longer this lasts, but this would definitely be something that I repurchase once it's gone. These are all of the foundations that survived the project. Let's talk about them. This is the Glossier Skin Perfecting Tint. Okay, so earlier on my channel, I reviewed Glossier kind of as a brand. And I think at that time I wasn't very into this, but my taste has changed a lot since then because that was a couple years ago. Back in the day, I was very into matte, very into high coverage. And now I'm like really the opposite. I really like a dewy and like light to medium coverage. I know that this product is not for everyone. However, I find it very nice for me. It's very blurring. There's something in here that like really blurs the skin quite well. So if that's like what you're looking for, this is like an amazing product for blurring the skin. I'm definitely almost done with this, and I know I'm not running to buy it again immediately because I have so much to use right now. However, I think as I work my foundations down, this is something that I'm going to reintroduce to my collection again in the future. I just need to work through some of my other foundations. This is a beautiful product. I'm very excited that I got reintroduced to it in this project. Obviously, I'd use a lot. This is like almost gone. Excited that I'm excited about it. The Kryolan TV paint sticks, these are a bit of an outlier in my collection. As you can see, like if this is a white foundation and this one is purple. These serve a very specific purpose. I did use the white one on a Patreon only version of the project. Because I did something like very extensive, very in-depth, like it was like a very detailed thing that I was like experimenting with some stuff, so I wasn't feeling safe enough to do that on my platform here on YouTube, but I did do it on my Patreon. So these serve a very specific purpose. They're not gonna, I don't know that I'll ever pan these, like I don't know that I'll ever use these up. However, I like to have them whenever I'm feeling inspired to use them. So they'll stick around, but these are not designed for like everyday use, so very specific here. The Surratt Dewdrop Foundation. This is my favorite foundation. It has this dropper applicator. It's very interesting because you can't squish this, but there's a button that you can squish on the bottom. That's how you get it out. The more I use this, the easier it gets to get the foundation out of. I think I'm just learning how to properly get it out of here. That's the most frustrating part about this. Everything else about this is a beautiful product. It makes your skin look perfectly blurred, perfectly amazing. It is like a light to light medium coverage foundation, but it really does the job. Like if you don't need a lot of coverage and your problem is like more like you just need a little bit of blurring, this is it. This is the one. It's such a beautiful product. It is expensive and you don't even get a full ounce, but I already have another one of these because this is such a delightful product that I am obsessed. Every time I use it, I'm happy that I'm using it. It's a gorgeous foundation. It is fully my number one. This is the NARS Soft Matte Foundation. This is unlike anything else you can see down here. This is fuller coverage. This is matte, which is not my favorite finish. However, if I do want to go full glam, this is the foundation I want to use to do that. For it being soft matte, it still wears really well for me. That might be because I lean more oily, so I'm going to say that fully. Like, a lot of these products, I feel like people with drier skin would also enjoy these. But I don't think my subscribers with dry skin would enjoy this as much as I do. But this wears really well, has great longevity. It's just a beautiful foundation. It's not my favorite. It's not my go-to. For a long time, this was my go-to. I would run to it. I loved it back in those days whenever I was like a full coverage girl. But nowadays, this is more for like if I want to do an Instagram look, or if I'm going out on the town and I really want to be like perfected, that's what this is for. But it's not like my everyday foundation, but it's not a foundation that I'm upset about having. This is the Givenchy Teint Couture City Balm. This is one of my favorite complexion products coming in to the project. This was kind of like the first foundation product that I tried that was like glowy and a little bit of a lighter coverage for me. And I was like, oh, is this what I like? Turns out, yes, that is what I like. That is what I like kind of lean into more now. Now, I don't know if they're planning on discontinuing this or not. It's a little bit harder to find than it once was. It's not on Beautylish. It's not on Sephora. It's still on Givenchy's website, so you can still buy it. The shade range is garbage. I've mentioned that many times, but I don't know. The blurring quality is not here. Like, this definitely has more coverage than the Surratt one, but it wears really nice, and you also get the benefit of the SPF, which I think is also really nice. I just feel like this makes my skin look really, really nice. But I will say this, it definitely feels like more makeup-y than the other skin tints or the other things that I have talked about now. Like it's not as makeup-y as like the NARS foundation, but it's definitely more makeup-y than some of the other. But I really like this. I'm looking forward to finishing this up. I think with other things that I have found throughout this is not something that I would repurchase, but happy to see through to the end. This is the Estee Lauder Futurist Hydra Rescue Foundation. I had mentioned that I really like this for filming. This is a foundation. This is like medium to full coverage, which is interesting because it definitely looks and feels like something that should be like lighter coverage, but it's not. It has good coverage. It looks really good on the skin. It keeps the dew even after you're powdered. However, it does stay. And sometimes whenever you have oily skin, the worry about something that has a dewy finish is that it's going to slide around your face. This one doesn't do that. I really like it. I like it. It looks great in real life, but it looks the best on screen. So that's probably when I'll use it the most, is if I'm like recording a video. That's probably when you'll see this the most. But it is a beautiful foundation. Not something I would run to regrab unless I decide that I want to have foundations that like I use for filming, but I don't think that that's something that I will be doing because I find that all of the things that I use look great on camera, but this one is probably like my favorite one to use on camera, but not my favorite in real life. This gorgeous, gorgeous girl. This is the Dr. Jart BB Dissapore. And this and me during this project, oh baby, we had a great time. We were loving life. We were having the best time. This is not something that I like knew that I liked before I came into the project. I used it one of the days and I was like, I can't wait to wear that again. It blurs. Like, whenever it says Dissapore, it really does that. It really does that. And then I also use it as a primer, and it made a foundation that I didn't really care for as much as my other foundations look stunning. So this is now a multi-use product. This, unlike some of the other things I just mentioned, this is something that will always be in my collection, like always, always. Like, I could put this on any day. It looks really good, like running out about on the town. And it's like not something that I feel like I would have to do a full face of. Like, if I just was feeling like I needed some coverage that day, like, oh my God. The downside of this is that there's only 2 shades. It sounds like the other shade, the medium deep, is Obviously not inclusive. Like, obviously 2 shades is not enough. Obviously 2 shades is not enough, but this has become invaluable in my collection. And I can't believe that I only discovered it through this project, because it had been, this was something I got in gratis and I was like, I'm not interested in that, but it is now something I can see I'm gonna be using a lot. I'm gonna use it a lot. The Pat McGrath foundation, I did a complete review of this product. I really like this. It's not something I intend on repurchasing. So like, unlike the Surratt foundation, I find that to be worth $75. It works really well. This is a really nice foundation, but just not something that I'm interested in purchasing again. I don't have that much to go through. So this is definitely one of my first focuses to use up in the new year. The Lancome Tentadol Ultra Wear. This has had highs and lows throughout the project. I got to use it quite a few times. The finish of this isn't my favorite. However, under certain circumstances, this looks really lovely on my skin, so I can definitely make it work. Now, I have been really trying to chase my joy while using products in my collection, like trying to really sort out what's good and what's not, like what I want from makeup, etc., etc., etc. And while this isn't my number one thing, certainly isn't, I can definitely see myself using this up because it does have nice coverage. It does look good on the skin for the most part, but it leans a little more matte than what I like. And because I like, this used to be, whenever I really liked matte foundation, this is it. And it's certainly not as matte as the NARS, but I would rather use the NARS if I want to go matte. Does that make sense? So with like the glowy makeup serum, this looks really good. And with the Bobbi Brown, this looks really good. So also on top of the Dissapore, it looked really good. This will be a nice foundation when I'm doing makeup playtime, as to not waste the foundations that I would rather wear for a longer period of time. This would be it. And I'm saying this as someone who received this in gratis. I would not recommend for you to buy this for makeup playtime, but for me, in order to use this up, I think that would be when I would use this the most. So I'm looking forward to continuing to play with this. My Tom Ford Cushion Shade and Illuminate foundation. One, this compact is like unparalleled, right? We love the compact. The compact will remain even long after the product inside. This is a gorgeous foundation. I'm a little bit miffed that I can't buy replacements for this cushion, but it did start my love affair with the cushion foundation. So I'm excited in the new year to hopefully, because I'm assuming this will dry out within the new year, I will use it up. But I'm very excited to try some other cushion foundations. Like I've expressed interest in the Chantecaille cushion foundation. I actually don't know a lot of brands that have cushion foundations, and I wouldn't even mind trying like a drugstore cushion. I like the coverage of it. It makes my skin look really good. Unfortunately, it's not something I could recommend for you to purchase as it is discontinued, but if you have this in your collection and you forgot about it, maybe pull it out. She's worth taking through another spin. These are all the concealers that survived the project. Let's talk about them. So this is the concealer from Pat McGrath Labs. And at first I thought this was something that was going to be very likely to get decluttered, actually, because there's something interesting about this concealer. I feel like there's like a learning curve with this concealer. I feel like I have had issues with this concealer in the past, but with a light hand, you still get a lot of coverage, and it works really well with like light coverage foundations and like blends into the skin rather well, but it also works with full coverage foundations too. So it's actually a very versatile concealer, and I really enjoyed it. Now, if you put too much on, you'll get the creases, but if you go in with a very light hand, I think you're gonna get a beautiful application every single time with this concealer. So this concealer, I'm very excited to continue to use it. I don't know if it's something that I would repurchase though. The Touche Éclat All Over Brightening Pen from YSL. This is very nice. I was really enjoying this before the project. I think I've almost panned this one. I think I'm almost done with it. I have a couple backups of it though. Why is this looking so dark? I have bright lights on, and I don't know why everything looks so dark, but it's okay. This was my favorite concealer coming into the project. It's not my favorite concealer going out of the project, but I'm more than happy to continue to keep using this. This is really nice for light coverage foundations. I find that I don't have very problematic under eyes as far as like needing a lot of coverage underneath the eyes. So I find something that is very useful. I think this is a beautiful product. I don't think it's a product for everybody, but if you don't need a lot of coverage under the eyes and you're just looking for brightening, I think this is a gorgeous product. The Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Sculpt Concealer. I really like this, but it's only for very specific reasons and very specific uses. This is its best whenever it's being used with something with high coverage. This is its best when I am being careful with how much I use, because it starts looking like a little bit crepey if I'm not paying attention to how much I'm putting on. Like a little dab is all you need of this product and it will work beautifully. Unlike the Pat McGrath, I can't use this with like lighter coverage foundations. And earlier you saw that I had a backup of this that I decluttered. So this is something that I will continue to use until this one is gone, but it is not something that I would repurchase. But if you are someone who likes a high coverage matte concealer, I think that this is maybe the best one I've ever tried. So it's for someone, it's just no longer for me. This little baby, this is the Armani Luminous Silk Concealer. I got this as gratis from Sephora. As you can see, this G scribed into here. And this is a tester, so this is definitely gratis. So this had been in my collection for a while. I don't know when I got this. However, using it in this project, once we cycled through the concealers, this was the concealer I couldn't wait to use again. It looks so beautiful under the eyes. It looks like healthy, glowy skin, and it still glows once you've powdered over top of it. Like, this product is so good. I think it's important to note here that if you're not familiar with my content and haven't been here for a while, I reviewed the Luminous Silk Foundation and I hated it. And I think I was avoiding this because I thought it was going to perform like that, but if that foundation was this, I wouldn't mind putting this all over my face. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. This is a stunning concealer. And now, one of the flaws of this project was almost all of what I was doing was application based only. So I wasn't seeing wear time all of the time, depending on what I was doing, because sometimes I would wash off the face right after I was done recording, or I would only wear that face of makeup for a few hours. But I'm happy to report that this wears really well for extended periods of time as well. So this is actually my new favorite concealer. This is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. This was interesting because the first time I used it, I was like, I'm going to declutter it. The second time I used it in the project, I was like, okay, I think I like this. The third time I was like, okay, I really like this. It's a very, very nice concealer. Does it excite me like some of the other concealers I have? No. But you know what? I'm more than happy to see this one through to the end. So these are all of the powders and finishing powders that I used throughout this project. We'll just go through these really quickly. So Dim Light, this is from Hourglass. This came in the most handy whenever I wanted like a glowy finish. I use it as a setting powder sometimes. Sometimes I use it, after I've finished all of my makeup. It's a pretty versatile powder. It's not something that I know that I would like purchase again once I finish this. Perhaps. We'll see how useful it becomes. I feel like it got the most use ever during this project. Like, I pulled it out many times. Like, powders I kind of played really fast and loose throughout this project because all of my powders at this point kind of do different things except for like this one and this one. This one gives you like a glowing candle. You just like, you glow, but like not too much. It just looks really beautiful on the skin. It's really beautiful for photos. I've said this before that as an oily skinned person, this is not gonna like mattify you. I feel like this is best for us oily skinned people. If we're gonna take photos or like even on video, like if you happen to be a creator who makes videos, this looks really great on video too. But I do find that like after a few hours, you start looking like your face is kind of falling off just a little bit. So this has like a very specific purpose. And also, Brittany, one of my subscribers, also suggested to use this whenever I go a little too ham on blush. And that came in handy a number of times. So Really like this powder. Again, I don't know if it's something that I would purchase again in the future. This is the Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder. I'm almost done with this container. I have a secondary container of this. Like, there's very little powder left in here. I really like this powder. The other thing that's really nice about Laura Mercier, for the most part, I can't speak to all setting powders, but price per ounce, at least when you're like shopping at a higher end retailer like Sephora, price per ounce, this is one of the least expensive powders. It's a very nice powder. It's not my be all end all powder, but I'm more than happy to finish this container and also finish another container of it before re-upping on a powder. The baby, our child, this is the Chantecaille blurring powder. This is like my favorite. It's my favorite powder. I used it every single time I did a look during the project. And I like it right under the eyes. I really like to focus this into the center of my face. So the forehead, my cheeks, anywhere that there's large pores. I don't find that this is like the be all end all over setting powder. So like I will always have something like Laura Mercier to pair with this. I'm never gonna just only use this. But I think because I use it on such focal points, this will last me enough time where the price is warranted for this. And when I'm pairing it with other things, it'll just give this a little more longevity. I also have a backup of this that was in my drawers. I'm more than happy to hold on to that until it's time, because I really like this and I use it all the time. The Pat McGrath setting powder. This is fine. It is fine. It's like the epitome of fine. I have no qualms about it either way. I like the Laura Mercier more. This is more expensive, price per ounce. You don't even get that much powder in it. And for Pat McGrath, the packaging on this is really lacking. And while I don't really want my setting powder to be like in a glass container, but look at Laura Mercier's. This is much cheaper and you get much more product. And this is Pat McGrath's, which is much more expensive. It looks like something you could buy at Target. That's like my qualms with this. Also, I don't know how I feel about any filtering system on a powder, but I think this mesh top thing is really not it. I think I liked this powder more when I was baking, but I don't do that anymore. So now I just kind of sweep powder all over my face, except for this, which I buff into the skin. Anyway, enough on powders. These are all for staying in my collection, and that's okay. So these are all the bronzing products that survived the project. And what's kind of funny about the bronzers to me is that they were always what I used as the example of what I would run through the fastest and cycle through the most. And I believe that I was correct. So let's take a look at everything. Now, let's start with the Natasha Denona Tan Bronze and Glow palette. This palette was actually in a purgatory box. And in my purgatory items, I did not pull them out for this project because I wanted to give them their own special dedicated time for me to get to know them more. I had used this product before the project. So I did this video where I was like trying to create a relationship with products that I don't currently have a relationship with. And this was something that I used in it. A couple cycles through my bronzers, I was like, you know what I really want to use? I want to use this matte bronzer in here. And I have very much enjoyed it. So I didn't use the whole palette a lot. I only really used this matte powder, which I really enjoyed. This can be really intense using all of these things together. And that's where I think I got overwhelmed. So I'm excited to the future playing with this palette, using some of the other creams and things, but trying to do it in a way where it feels not so crazy, because sometimes this does. Like, this is like a very editorial cheek when you're doing all of the steps in here. However, I did learn that I can now simplify it, because I would likely use if I use this very diligently as like my only bronzing product, this would take me the longest to pan anyway, so I'm okay using it as a one-off bronzer situation. The Hourglass bronzer. This is like one of my favorite bronzer formulas. This is the shade Diffuse Bronze Light. I really like this. It's a very gorgeous, I find that these are just foolproof powders. The Hourglass bronzers, they're just like very foolproof. It's really hard to overdo it. And as someone who can be a little bit heavy-handed with complexion products, that's like a blessing for me. So I really like this bronzing powder, and I'm excited now that the Burberry Warm Glow #1 is out of my collection to like really spend some time with my other bronzers in a way that I feel less guilty about because they're newer, and you know what I mean? Like I'm excited about that. I'm gonna talk about these two together because I would never use one really without the other. I have the shades Butter Biscuit and Amber. So this is Amber and this is Butter Biscuit. And the reason I'm talking about them together is because I will use this as my contour if I'm gonna use this as my bronzer instead of using a powdered contour, because these play really well together. Oh my god, there's a dog hair in my Butter Biscuit. I find these really delightful to use, but my favorite kind of foundation to use these on is something that's really glowy, because I find that these keep it sheeny. I don't know how else to describe it. So like if I really want a glossy, glassy look, I'm going to use these instead of powder products, and just it's very nice. I am excited to see so much pan on this. I panned this earlier in the year, hit pan on it earlier in the year, and I'm excited to keep using it. Like I'm getting down and down and down into that pan. And then Butter Biscuit, I think I'm about to hit pan on. I just didn't manage to do it during the project. That was something I was very keen on doing. It is nice to see progress on it. So I'm excited to continue seeing progress on this. And then if you watched my project at all, you know how fast I reached for this every time I cycled through my bronzers. This is the Tom Ford bronzer in 02 Terra. I think it only comes in this shade, and it only comes in the size that is much smaller than this now. It's a beautiful bronzer. It's very neutral. It doesn't go too orange. It's just a beautiful product. So if you have a skin tone similar to mine, then I think you would really like this. And as someone who had trouble panning a bronzer over the course of 6 years, I'm not really concerned that I spent the amount of money that I did on this. And if you are someone who takes a long time to pan a bronzer and you were interested in investing the money, I think this is like worth the money. If you aren't on a low buy, aren't on a no buy, have the means, and are not using a credit card, like then I would say that this is a solid buy. But if it's not any of those situations, I don't think that this is a necessary purchase, but it is very luxe. It's really nice to have. I love this packaging. Everything about this bronzer is like why it's my dream bronzer. I hope that I hope they make more shades of this, because there's only this one, and it's just like, obviously this is not a universal shade, especially if I'm very fair and I'm using this. And I imagine that this could possibly work for someone with a medium skin tone as well if you built it up, but like who wants to do that? I just think there should be more shade. This is such a beautiful product that I just don't know why there isn't more of it. But anyway, happy to continue using this into the new year. Okay, these are all the blushes that have currently survived the project. First things first, this is the Natasha Denona in Bloom palette. I really like this. I need to play this with a little bit more to see how I can make it less the star of the show whenever I use it, because it's really beautiful, but I do find that every time I pick this up, my inclination is to just like cover my face in blush. And so I'm excited to continue using this, but I'm excited to continue using it and playing with it and exploring it in a way to see if I can make it a little bit more everyday wearable. But love the formulas in here. Love the intensity of this. Like that's really exciting to me, but I do need to like figure out a way to make this like a little bit more wearable for myself. These are my Hourglass blushes. This is Incandescent Electra. This is At Night. And this is Euphoric Fusion. And I'm gonna set Euphoric Fusion and At Night aside for now. I'm gonna keep Incandescent Electra just on the side here. I love Hourglass blushes because I find that they are rather foolproof. They are very hard to mess up. It's really hard to go overboard. They make very beautiful everyday wearable shades. I love the beautiful like highlighty sheen that they have to them. I think these are just like so stunning. Like this is like my kind of blush. Like I love this finish of blush. I love the way that this all looks on the skin. Like this is my jam. This KVD blush in Rosebud. I really enjoyed this. I used this, I think I may have used it twice. I think after I cycled through the blushes, like I pulled this one out again. I really like this. And I had more of these. I decluttered 2 of the shades. I really like this formula, but I think I just liked this shade the most. There were other shades that I had. I also liked those shades, but this shade I think is very unique to my collection. It's really like my only cool tone blush that I can think of, and it applies very beautifully, and it is matte, which is interesting because like famously don't love a matte blush, but this one she can live. The Fenty cream blush in Fuego Flush. I love this because this one has like sparkle to it. It's a very shiny. It looks really good. I feel like it makes my skin look really healthy and alive. And I love an orange blush, so this really speaks to me like on a number of levels. This is like A1. Love her. I used to have all of the Ritual Defy Nectar Pigment Balms, but now I only have Wasp and Snapdragon. These are really nice. I don't know if this is my favorite cream blush formula, but I think that these colors are really interesting. Like Wasp is a beautiful like yellow blush, and this is like a lot different than the orange cream blush from Fenty that I just showed you. These are just like these were like the fun 2 shades from the Nectar Pigment Balms, and they add something to my collection. So I enjoy using them, but they're like a very specific look whenever I do decide to use them. Let's talk about Pat McGrath. I have 3 of the Pat McGrath blushes. The packaging is annoying, and I'm sure you've heard other creators say that the packaging is annoying on these. Okay, let's start with this one. This one's my favorite shade. This is the shade Desert Orchid. This is a very unique blush, and I have heard from my subscribers that they also feel that this is like a very unique blush. I don't know what it is about it. It is just like my favorite shade of blush I've ever owned. Now, I normally really lean into orange, and there's like some of that happening here, but it doesn't look like this color on the cheeks, but I couldn't tell you what color it looks like. It's just a magical shade of blush. It's like my freaking favorite. It brings me immense joy, and this shade in particular is like really where it's at. Love Desert Orchid. Electric Bloom. This is like a really beautiful, like intense, punchy coral shade. This is like obviously a very specific shade of blush, but oh, it's so gorgeous. This is the shade Paradise Venus. I would say that Desert Orchid's my number 1. This is like a very close number 2. This looks really, really good on the cheeks. And I don't know what it is about, like this formula is really, really divine. It's not my favorite formula blush, but it is so, so good. And this shade in particular is like these shades, I think I somehow did a really good job during this release, really picking out the shades that I think were going to be the best for me. And while I really like Electric Bloom as well, it's just a little too intense, you know, for the everyday, but Desert Orchid and Paradise Venus are like really everyday situations. This is the Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks in Puppet. Now, long storied history, if you weren't there for the journey, I claimed that I don't like pink cosmetics, but this blush has been a delight to use, and I've used it a couple different ways during the project. I actually really like it. I really do. So I'm looking forward to continuing to play with this into the new year. I just like this packaging. I like this blush formula. It's really easy to blend out. Always have a good time with this. I have a propensity to go a little too hard on it, and it looks a little too intense. But it can diffuse. It does blend out beautifully. So I enjoy using that. The Tower 28 Beach Please Power Hour blush. I really like this. Now, in my project, I went a little too ham with it on the one look, but then I use it again on a different look so I could show people that it actually is a beautiful blush. So I really enjoy this. I know it is like a thicker formula. I like don't know how to describe it. Like all my other cream blushes where like it takes like 1 or 2 swipes. This one takes like 4 to 5 swipes to really get that like that feeling like it's gonna start melding into the skin, because like upon touching it immediately, it's kind of like grippy and like not that much comes up on the finger. I really like this shade. I don't know that I would buy another one of these, but I find that this shade is unique in my collection. I like the intensity and depth of it. And so then I have my Chantecaille blush in the Butterfly Bliss shade. And so I held on to Euphoric Fusion just to show you these together. Now they don't look very similar, but I feel like they read very similar on the cheeks. This is Incandescent Electra. So I find that Incandescent Electra and this Bliss Butterfly read very similarly. And so I like Incandescent Electra a little bit better because I like this sheen to it. Now, the Chantecaille powder is like nice. It is like a very nice blush, but if I was going to choose between the two of these, I'm definitely going to go like every time with the Hourglass. So while I like the formula of this, I just don't find that this shade is special enough for me to keep, especially whenever I feel like Incandescent Electra is in my favorite formula of blush, and I already have this. I just do not need this Chantecaille blush. So I'm actually going to pass on this. This is it is the final one. Here are all the highlighters that survived the project. Let's jump into them. First up, this is the Tarte Skin Twinkle Volume 2. These shades are both really, really gorgeous. I always really love playing with them. These are things that I could see myself fully panning. I really think these are beautiful highlighters. This is not something that you can purchase anymore, so I won't sit here and talk about it too much, but I've always loved this, and I continue to love it. The Westman Atelier Lit Up Stick in the shade Nectar. This is a really beautiful highlight. I have made some errors with it throughout the project where I tried to drag it over top of powder, which you can't do, but it taps beautifully over top of powder. So it is a very, very nice, it's very, very nice. The thing is, like, these cream stick highlighters, they all seem to be pretty bougie because I'm going to talk about Pat McGrath here in a second. It's like the ease of use, tapping on is gorgeous. It's just, I really like it. I like the way it feels. I don't know that I would like say that this is something that anybody needs, just to be for full disclosure, but I enjoy having it in my collection. This is the old packaging of the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish highlighter. So this is what it looks like. This is really beautiful. I was trying to pan this earlier this year, and it's still smelling good. It's still performing really well. And this is another one that I can drag or tap over top of foundation, tap over powder, but drag over, you know, if I haven't powdered. Beautiful. Really like it. Excited to continue to use it. I don't think it'll probably last through this whole year based on how old it is, but I still think it's a very beautiful product. Will I repurchase it in the new format once this one goes off? Absolutely not. Like, look at how many highlighters I have, but really enjoy this. The elephant in the room, let's tackle the Ritual Defee. So I love both formulas of Ritual Defee. I like the metamorphic highlighters. I like the Rare Light Luminizers. So we'll just go through these really quickly. These are really beautiful, just ethereal looking highlights. This is the shade the Chimera. This is one of the metamorphic highlighters. The metamorphic ones have like chunkier shiny particles, and this one was limited edition. So stunning. This is one that I wish they would make permanent because like I will miss this when it's gone, but I sure love using it. This one has like a nice little dip going in it. This is the High Priestess. This is a metamorphic highlighter. I just love the shift on this one. This one's so, so gorgeous. This is a Rare Light Luminizer in the shade Phosphine. This is the formula that I would recommend if you are not as into like glittery highlights, but you like a very shifty, beautiful, ethereal highlight. This is the formula for you. Now they have a couple shades. This is like a more normal shade. It has like an interesting shift, but it's not too much. If you're interested in my Ritual Defee cheek products, I actually have a swatching video of these because I know that these products are like, it's hard to know what's going on sometimes. So this is the shade Lunaris. This is a Rare Light Luminizer. This is Moon Pillar. This is another Rare Light Luminizer. This is the Alchemist. So this is what they describe this as a highlight. Is that pan? It's so hard to tell. But does it, like in the scent, is that pan? I think I'm about to pan this. I love this a lot. Obviously, if I'm thinking that there's pan, and that's really exciting. I really love this. This is such a beautiful highlighter product to me. This has the thickest of chunks of all of them. So this is even more chunky, glittery than the metamorphic highlighters. This is really stunning. I love this product a lot. This is the Dream. This is a metamorphic highlighter that was a limited edition. So it looks really deep in the pan, but once you put it on your skin, it doesn't really, it's like a beautiful, like, pinky red highlight. It's really, really stunning. This is a Rare Light Luminizer in Solaris. And then this is the Metamorphic highlighter in the Fawn. For whatever reason, this one came in a smaller compact, but I think it's the same amount of product. And I like to, to me, this is like the High Priestess's older sister. This was also a limited edition, but this is gorgeous. This is from Pat McGrath. This was in the Skin Fetish kit that I got the stick highlighter in. This is a really gorgeous, like, iridescent pink shift. Oh, it's so stunning. I wish this was in like a compact like this, only because I often forget that that's what this is. But now it lives with my highlighters. It used to live in my single shadows in packaging collection. So now it's in the right place. I can see myself definitely reaching for it more. The odd thing is I don't remember using this in the project, but I know that I really like this. This is MAC's Extra Dimension Skin Finish in Show Gold. And it is a beautiful highlighter. It is super shimmery. As you can see, like, I definitely have worked this quite a bit. I really like this highlighter, and I actually tried it with wet for the first time, and oh, that was like a game changer. It like brought a whole new life to this product. This is actually brand new. My friend Tiffany bought this for me as just a act of kindness gift, which is like sometimes we'll just send each other gifts, and she sent this to me because I was talking about how I wanted it, and I am so excited to have it. I love this. This is one of those like glitters suspended in gel, like probably will be putting it on my eyes. Like I'm just so excited to have it, and like honestly, like this packaging is so beautiful. Also, this is the How Many Carats Diamond Balm from Fenty. I feel like I didn't say that explicitly, but like, oh, look at her. Oh my God, she's so gorgeous. This Milk highlighter, which apparently isn't being made anymore. This is the shade Lit in the Flex highlighter formula. Man, this is so good. Man, this is so good. I sung this to the high praises throughout this project. I really like this. I am excited to continue to use it. What a lovely product. Amazing formula. I can't speak enough about it. Okay, so I forgot that I had this in a different place because I didn't want to just throw it in the box with all the other things because the packaging is so beautiful. But this is from Pat McGrath. This was a holiday highlighter from 2020. Beautiful, gorgeous. Some people didn't get along with this product. Considering you can't buy anymore, I don't need to harp on it, but I think this is a beautiful, very subtle glow from within highlighter. Gorgeous, stunning, gorgeous, gorgeous girl. Me saying gorgeous, gorgeous girl is like really not going to age well, but it's fine. This is from Pat McGrath. This is the Divine Rose highlighter. This is like a beautiful baked gelée. I'm a big fan of the baked gelée highlighters because I find that they're really easy to put on. They give you a beautiful, beautiful glow. And this one's no different. It's just like, I like it so much. I don't know why I decided to swatch that one, but like, oh, it's so pretty. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Love it. I'm only keeping one of these, and I am going to be keeping the Trophy Wife from Fenty. I had been thinking about this for a little bit since the project ended. So, and since I used both of them, now they are not at all the same highlight, but they both are kind of like, there's not a lot of pigment to them. And they both have like gold sparkle, and that really ends up being like what shows up on the skin. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna keep both of them. I'm gonna use this one a few more times. I still like this highlighter. I know that it gets pretty crapped on a lot in the beauty community because it wasn't this and it wasn't that, but I kind of like what it in fact is. So it's kind of on watch. It's on watch, but this is the Iced Out highlighter from Anastasia Beverly Hills and Trophy Wife. I was feeling a little bit weird about both of these highlighters being in my collection considering they're both gold, but they are clearly very, very different things. I thought I might declutter Trophy Wife too because it's like unnecessary, but I really enjoy using it. So I don't know. I'm not going to force myself to get rid of something just because I feel like I should, if that makes sense. And There were a lot of things that I was really good at decluttering throughout the project, but highlighters, I don't know, really it's not the one. So I'm still enjoying my highlighter collection. It didn't really change at all, so good for me, I guess. These are all the face palettes that I used throughout the project. Let's go through them one by one. So first up, this is the Burberry Essentials Glow palette. This has a cream bronzer, whatever this is supposed to be used for, and then 2 blushes and 2 highlighters. So I really love these blushes and highlighters. They are fantastic. This powder is fine. I don't know that in my head, I don't know what to use this for. This bronzer is very deep, and this is the light version of this palette. There is also a medium to deep version of this palette. It's a very intense bronze, and everything else in this product is like elegant feeling, and this feels like heavy versus the rest of them. I do want to use it up because it's there. I also don't understand why this bronzer is cream when everything else is a baked gelée. Not that I know if I would want a like baked gelée bronzer that feels like very sheeny. That would be very sheeny. But like not this. And the reason I bought this is because of that Burberry Warm Glow #1. I thought this was going to be a powder bronzer and I didn't read, but I ended up buying it. I don't have regrets about purchasing it because everything, like 4 out of the 6 things are so lovely. Again, don't know what to do with that. So I did put it on top of the bronzer and I think that like helped tame it down a little bit, but that just feels like I really don't know what to do with that. Of course, someone with deeper skin could easily use this as a highlight, but if this palette is for lighter skinned people, we're not going to use that as a highlight. Like it's just too deep for us. So if anyone else has this palette, what do you use this shade for? And do you like this bronzer? Things I'm genuinely curious about. Also, that's that shade swatch, so I don't really know. I don't really know what to make of it. However, most of this I really like. Would I recommend it to you? I don't think I would. Unless you really want to try. This is like a more cost-effective way to try like the blushes and the highlights from Burberry. So if you want to do it for that reason, sure. But if you were looking at for this for the bronzer as part of the experience, I don't think I would recommend it for that. This is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit from 2020. So we have dim light, another finishing powder that I don't know the name of, a highlight, a bronzer, and then 2 blushes. Now at first hi, that's me. That's what I look like today. At first I didn't like this palette because of the bronzer and the highlight, which I found to be too deep for me. But going in with a much lighter hand and like a much lighter application, I have found that this palette definitely can work for me. So I'm very much looking forward to using this a lot more in the new year because it has dim light and it also has this, which I actually really like this, putting on top of the Chantecaille blurring powder. Just gives me a little bit of brightening under the eye, which is really nice. I really like Hourglass powders quite a bit. So I can see this being in my top drawer and something that I reach for a lot more this year, especially whenever if I don't know what to grab for as far as complexion, I'll be like, you know what, this is going to answer all of those, solve all those questions for me. This is the Lunatic Cosmetics Lambs Contour Volume 1. As you can see, well loved are the contours in here. Everything else I don't use as much. I have learned that I do really like products that have a nice sheen to them because I feel like they bring a lot more life to my skin than all matte. Now, contours, I don't mind being all matte. However, all of these products are very lovely. I won't be getting rid of this, but it is kind of like a black hole product where it's like I'm reaching for this when I want these contours, and then I might consider using the bronzers once I have this open, but I don't find these blushes really compelling beyond this one, which I think is like a very fun shade of blush, but the other ones are like not it for me. So in the future, or if you were looking to try Lunatic Cosmetics Labs, unless you really like matte everything and you don't have other things that you would be more likely to reach for first, then I wouldn't recommend this. But I would recommend getting a single. If you want to try this contour because you like a gray contour, then I would recommend getting the single refill pan of it as opposed to buying the whole thing. But I would say if you're a drag performer who wears a lot of matte, or if you're a stage performer, I think this could be a very useful tool for you. But I think me as someone who's not doing any of those things, the only things that I find very beneficial to me are these contours because I like a dark gray contour. And last but not least, this is the Natasha Denona Diamond and Blush highlight palette. This is in the Daria variation. Here it is. I have liked this more and more every time I've used it. I really like this highlight topped with this. And I really like all of it. And I think using it a couple times in this project was really helpful to me. I really like the way my skin looked after every time I used it. And the pink in here isn't as obnoxious as I initially thought. I feel like I will be reaching for this more. And I talked about this a lot leading into the project, but face palettes are something that I often forget to use, but that was because my face palettes were living in my eyeshadow drawer. And by the time I would get to the eyeshadow drawer to pick out things, it would be like I had already picked out everything. And so then I wouldn't use my face palettes because they were kind of already spoken for. Like that gap was already kind of filled in what I faced that day. So I actually foresee all of these getting much more play in 2022, which I think is very exciting for me. These are all the lip products that I shuffled through during the project. And the goal of this is for me to just like retake a look and reconsider these things because lip, I only made it all the way through one time. So I think the most important thing to do is to I'm going to remove things and discuss things really quickly that I know that I'm keeping. The first thing that I'm definitely keeping is going to be my lip liners. I have a couple different brands. I mostly have Pat McGrath lip liners, and there's definitely one that is floating around somewhere else that I couldn't find right now, but I have 3 of these. And then I also have this one from Patrick Ta. I just don't have that many lip liners, so I'm okay with keeping them and continuing to use what I have as far as that goes. And they perform well enough, but I also am here to fully admit to you that I'm not really like a lip liner snob. I haven't tried that many, so I don't know that I'm going to be the best at recommending them to you. So don't think that just because I'm using a Pat McGrath lip liner or a Patrick Ta lip liner means that that's what I think is the best. It's just what I have. It's so funny. I have this makeup floating just all over this room. There's definitely another lipstick that I can think of that is missing that I'm sure I will find throughout. Okay. Now, there is definitely a couple of things that I know that I don't want to keep, but I'm just going to now work this way because rolling is the thing that's happening. My room is tilted to this direction, so the lipsticks all want to roll off that way. So this is Trinket from Sugar Pill. I remember this formula feeling really dry when I used it, and while it is a pretty shade, I just think that I'm not going to reach for this that often because I did like a couple other Sugar Pill formulas that I have a lot better than this. And so I think what is the smartest thing to do is to just remove this from the situation because I just don't think I'm going to reach for it that often, even moving forward. On the flip side of that, this is Sugar Pill's Gravity lipstick. This is like a bullet lipstick. This is so much more comfortable, so much easier to apply than the liquid lipstick in Trinket. It's kind of like a one swipe beauty. And this was a very beautiful shade that I was always surprised by when I used it. I managed to use it twice in the project. It was one of the first lipsticks that when I could reach for lipsticks that I had already used again, this was one of the ones that I definitely want to try. Also, there's just something very aesthetically pleasing about the capsule packaging versus this. They're both cute, but this is much cuter. So even for aesthetic reasons, this is something I want to keep around just to continue to look at. The Hourglass Confessions Red Zero lipstick is going nowhere. This is one of my favorite lipstick formulas. Before this year, I had never tried a Confessions lipstick, and so I will reach for this over and over again. It's just such a beautiful, true red. I love everything about this product just because of what it stands for and what it could mean for the beauty community should it take off in the way that I think that it should, because this is layered. This is a layered love. This MAC lip gloss is just such a special shade that I like don't have the heart to ever declutter this. I like the formula of it. It's something that's very fun. It's something that I'm going to hope to get a lot more use out of this year and think about a lot more. It'll definitely be something that will end up in that top drawer project probably a few times. Because this product is getting a little bit older, I fear that I'm not going to be able to use it all the way up, which should be okay if I don't use it all the way up, but I do definitely want to use it more than I have because it's just it's so beautiful. It's just such a beautiful product. Unlike Trinket, Dropout from Sugar Pill is a much, much better shade. And the formula also held up a lot better than Trinket. I don't know if maybe whenever I bought them, because I bought them at the same time, that this was a newer formula and that was an older Trinket. Like this was just like made more recently and maybe that's why. But I really like the shade. I love like the cool grungy green with gold. Like this is just much, much more special than Trinket and that's why I'm keeping this one. Lavender Jade from MAC I'm keeping solely because the color is important. The color is pretty. I still don't think it's going to be something that I end up using a lot, but I like having it whenever I'm doing a look that's like a little more avant-garde or that requires a colorful lip, or I can pull it out if I have a neutral face that leans a little more cool toned. I definitely feel like I need like a lip liner that's like a dark purple to wear with it because I think that it's too, because of all of the white pigment probably to make it pastel-y. I just don't like the way that sits on my lips on its own, so I would definitely always want to wear it or pair it with something else. This is from Pat McGrath. This is from the Glitter Lip Kits. This is the shade Rose Desire. So this is the Rose Desire lipstick from Pat McGrath. I remember when I put this on my lips, it was a little more pink. I feel like this might not be long for my collection, but I feel like I want to wear it a couple more times, and I only got to use it once during the project. So this is something that I would like to revisit soon, just to see the shade of it again on me for a look. Next is this Lip Maximizer from Dior. I really like this lip plumper. I really like the shade. This is the shade Rosewood, or 203, I believe. Nope, it's 012. And I really like this. This is something I could actually see myself buying again in the future, and I just want to use this up. It's just such an easy thing to put with most looks. I can just opt for this because I know it's going to look good with anything I have on my face. So let's go through my Pat McGrath stuff. I think I'm actually going to declutter at least one thing. This is McMemony from Pat McGrath's Matte Trans formula. This was very inconsistent on the lips. While it is a very pretty shade, I didn't appreciate that it was so inconsistent. Like it was, I don't really want to call it patchy, but like I guess that's like, you know, inconsistent, patchy kind of can go hand in hand. It wasn't that it like looked bad and it was like easy to fix, but for $38, this one didn't do it for me. But what's interesting is that I don't have this problem with other shades in the line. I don't know what it is. It might be because it's such a deep shade, but I just don't think the formulation of this particular shade is good, and I'm going to pass that on. The shade Vendetta, I remember that I have worn it during this project, but I don't remember really what I felt about it. So this is definitely something that I think is okay to remain in my collection, to try a few more times to see if I, one, like the shade, two, if it's as hard to work with as McMemony is. So this one's staying, and it just needs a few more trial runs before I really make a call on it. I'm not like forcing myself to declutter anything either. Like, I don't want you to think that. I just want to like pick things up, hold them in my hands, see how I feel about everything, going through them one more time before I put everything back in my drawers. That is kind of the goal of what I'm doing here. This one just needs to be worn a few more times to make a final call. This is in the Luxe Trans formula, which they no longer make. This is Sorry Not Sorry. This is a very beautiful like berry pink shade, and I really enjoyed it with the look that I wore it with. And I prefer this formula over the Matte Trans just in general, but this is actually the only Luxe Trans shade I ever got to buy because they got discontinued after I had this. And this one is the one I've had in my collection the longest. This is the shade Omi from the Matte Trans formulas. This is my favorite nude lipstick that I currently have. So anytime I don't know what to put on my lips, it's like this or that lip maximizer that I had talked about earlier from Dior. It's a very beautiful nude. I really like this shade. I know that I'm going to be able to pan this shade, so that's why I'm this one deserves to be in my collection for sure. This is the shade Flesh 3 in the Pat McGrath Matte Trans formula. Also, another shade I've used quite a bit. I like to use this often in conjunction with Omi and do like a very bold lip with like a gloss. So this is another thing that I'm pretty sure I will be able to pan over time. So I really like this shade as well. It's not like McMemony, but it is still deeper and it plays really well with Omi. So it's like one of those ones where I pick it up, I'm like, oh yes, I use this one quite a bit. This one was never getting lost in the sauce before the project and certainly won't get lost in the sauce after the project. And this is like the true star of the Pat McGrath Matte Trans lipsticks. This is the shade Full Blooded. And this is like my perfect vampy. I've just really enjoyed this shade when I put it on my lips. And for whatever reason, this one doesn't set matte. I don't know why. It still looks very like shiny when it's on my lips. I don't know what that is about it, but I like that about it because I really don't love a matte lip. I really enjoyed getting to know this shade a little bit better, and I'm excited to continue to use it into the future. So if you watched my project at all, you know that I really love my lip glosses. So I'm not gonna like belabor these too much, but this is the Opulus formula. So this is a little more pigmented from Pat McGrath. And whenever I tried this on, it was so beautiful. Also, I'm like halfway done with it. So I'm gonna keep it because I'm pretty sure I can pan this one. And it wore really nice on the lips. It's beautiful, but I forgot about it. And whenever I use it during the project, it reminded me that this can be worn down as well as spiced up too. But I think when I look at it, I just get intimidated by it because I think that I feel like it's going to be a very over the top lip, and it really isn't. These two shades are the shades that I used the most before the project. So just like the Omi shade and the Flesh 3 shade, these were never getting lost in my collection prior to the project. These are something that I was very aware of and reaching for often. The shade Paraphernalia and the shade Flesh Fantasy are both things that I like reached for a lot. So the glosses are all staying, but I'm just going to throw a few more thoughts on them out there. This is the shade Love Potion, Future Femme, and Peach Perversion. Now, when I was wearing these in the project, when I first put them on, they looked super milky on their own because I was using these as toppers before the project. But once they settle on the lips a bit, they don't look as milky and they're like very beautiful, like glittery glosses. So that was definitely nice to learn that I can wear these on their own. I just like kind of have to not look at them until they've been on my lips for a minute. So yes. I also missed my glosses. Once I had used all of my lip glosses, I was like really sad that I couldn't have a glossy finish anymore. So I just think I like prefer a gloss over a lipstick at this point, but it did still get to know some of these glosses a little bit better in the project. This is Bobbi Brown's Atomic Orange in her Luxe Lip Color formula. This is a really beautiful, highly pigmented, high impact orange. Very beautiful. Love this packaging. Love this formula. Probably wouldn't mind having some other shades in this formula, but I think this is like a very unique lipstick, and much like Lavender Jade from MAC, this is something that has a place, will just may not get used all of the time. This is this shade She's Hard to Get from Patrick Ta. It is the most beautiful pink lipstick, and I kind of learned throughout this project, even though I thought I didn't really like wearing pink, I really do. Now, this lipstick has always been super fierce, and I really liked that about it, but because I did a pink look with it, I was like, oh, I can now wear this more because I like wearing pink more than I thought I did. And that is something I learned throughout this project. This is the YSL Rouge Pour Couture 01. This is like their red shade, YSL's red shade. It's in limited edition packaging. This was from like a holiday packaging situation. So unlike that soft matte or that soft matte glow from YSL, this formula is very comfortable, very high impact, very shiny. So this is the kind of red that I really want to rock. This is the kind of YSL lipstick that I'm very into. Also, like the packaging is fancy and nice to have, and we love a luxe moment in our collection. So definitely excited to continue to explore this shade. It's not something that I think I might wear this more because I have really fallen in love with a neutral eye. So being able to do a neutral eye with like a bold lip is going to be something that I probably will be doing a lot more in 2022. Finally, this is from Fenty. This is the Unattached Stunna Lip Paint. This is just a beautiful shade. I don't know that it's the most wearable shade, but it's very beautiful. And I'm going to keep it to, it's just a beautiful shade to have in my collection and to have the option. I don't know how long it will last, but we will see, because I've only had it for a short amount of time because it was kind of just passed on to me recently. These are some of the eyeshadows palettes that survived the project. Let's jump through them really quick. This is Midnight Sun Mothership 6 from Pat McGrath. This is my favorite Mothership palette. Like, I will never turn my back on her. She's really gorgeous, beautiful, and stunning. So very thrilled that this got to come through. Beautiful. We love to see it. This is Mothership 8 Divine Rose 2. And I thought that I was going to declutter this, but after using it in the video that I did use it, I had a really great time using it, and I got a really gorgeous look, and it was a really effortless look. It was really easy to put together. Probably not like ranking like very, very high in my Pat McGrath, like in the way I would rank the Pat McGrath motherships, but honestly, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the look I got together with it. And again, this is like not why I love this palette. I enjoyed everything else that happened. This is Mothership 5. This is, I believe it's called the Bronze Temptation. This is one of my more favorite Pat McGrath palettes. Specifically, I find that these are like the 4 Pat McGrath Mothership special shades that I'm the most interested in. The other part of the palette isn't definitely as interesting, but it is gorgeous overall. I always really enjoy playing with this one. This is Mothership 7. This is Divine Rose 1. And I always have talked a lot of shit about this palette, but I think the way I've come around to neutrals more recently has left me really enjoying this a lot more. And the other thing is, I actually don't have a neutral palette, so like a neutral palette like this in any other brand. So I'm very excited to continue to use this and play with this a little bit more. This is Pat McGrath's Mothership 1. This is one of my more favorite of the Pat McGrath palettes. I love that this one's completely cool tone. This one is like literally like none of the other ones. So this one's definitely like way more special in my eyes, and I'm always excited to reach for this one. This one must be Mothership 4 because I haven't come across it yet. Okay, this one is a little bit of a different circumstance. I'm not going to get rid of it, but what I'm going to do in the new year, what the plan is, I'm going to do like a top drawer project. So when I'm putting everything back in the drawers, I'm going to leave my top drawer empty except for like the powders that I use the most. And what I'm going to do is then have some focal shadows, foundations, and things that I want to use for a whole month. And I want to see if, with playing with this further, if this ends up making any more sense to me than it currently does. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And that is the thing about like all of the other Mothership palettes I can attribute like a good look to. And not that the look that I got this is bad. It's just like, I don't think I fully get it. And I don't want to declutter it without giving it a little bit more time to see if we can like build a relationship with one another, considering it is in my collection. But I don't know that this is long for my collection, but I want to see it. I want to use it a few more times. If you have watched any of my content at all, you know that this isn't going to go anywhere. It is an eyeshadow palette that makes me very excited to use it every single time I use it. I love all the looks I get with it. It's very pretty. We were talking about Pat McGrath. This is the Interstellar Icon Quad, and you can see the duochrome in the mirror here, but this blue is like really sick. It's like really, really pretty. This shade's really pretty. This shade's really pretty. These shades are all very pretty. I really like this quad. It's very stunning. This is the African Violet Tom Ford quad. I love how easy this is. I love the pigmentation and how light and easy it is to blend. I really like all of these shades. I really like the look that I put together with it. So this is something I'm definitely excited to continue using. Now, is it a very specific look? Yes, but I like that look. This is the Tom Ford quad in Badass. And so a lot of people don't like this, but I really enjoyed using it when I did, and I really like the look that I got with it. Now it took a little bit of a moment. Like this shade's really interesting because it's like almost black whenever you put it on the eye. Like, you don't really see that tinge of red that you see in the palette. But I really like this, and I can appreciate why people probably didn't, because it's like you're going to do a smoky, glittery eye if you're doing this, but that's something that I actually really don't have anything else to fulfill, so I'm okay to keep this. And yeah, I really enjoyed playing with this when I did, and I imagine I will continue to have fun playing with this palette in the future. The Victoria Beckham Smoky Eye Brick in Tweed, my mirror fell out. I hate that, but really enjoyed playing with this palette. Love the quality of these eyeshadows. They're gorgeous. They're stunning. I talked about how there's like shimmer to these, and I don't think I was like clear enough, but like hopefully you can see there's shimmer in this shade and the purple shade. I think the matte could be brown and that the shimmer is from the shades nearby, which is the unfortunate part of like packaging your eyeshadows like this, is that some things, but like the purple and then this large cream shade are definitely shades that have glitter in them. The red is definitely matte, and I'm pretty sure that this brown is matte as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. So hopefully the person who like asked me about that is watching, because I also thought these were all matte whenever I bought them, but there's definitely some shimmer here. Just like the Badass quad and the African Violet quad, like you're doing like a very specific singular look with these, but it's a very beautiful look. And I like the quality of the Victoria Beckham eyeshadows. I don't like the quality of the Victoria Beckham packaging though. That leaves me a lot to be desired. So here are some more eyeshadows that survived the project. Let's go through them. Let's get these big guys out of the way. This is the Natasha Denona 28 pan green brown edition. This is like my favorite palette that I own. Using it during the project, I used this shade, and I like literally can't wait to use that shade in a look again. I'm excited to use this palette even further. Gorgeous. Like, this is one of those things where it's just like I would buy this again in a heartbeat. This one is very special. This is the purple blue edition. While I don't love this color story as much, I was very impressed because I hadn't really spent that much time with this one as opposed to the green brown one. I did a lot of swatching in that video that I used it in because I was like unfamiliar with this palette, but these bright shades that Natasha Denona did are like the easiest bright shades I've ever worked with. They were just how I like my eyeshadows to work. Like, I didn't have to use them any different than I would use a neutral shade, which sometimes I find that is the case when I'm messing with like a brights palette, but these are gorgeous. I, of course, love all of the shimmers. I'm excited to play with like this corally situation in here a little bit more and explore this. I will say that I remember swatching this shade in particular, and it like was not my favorite, but you know, out of 28 shades, one dud I think is okay. The Natasha Denona Gold palette. I mean, I really fostered quite a great relationship with it, which is funny because this was in that original video that kind of sparked my project for Mesmes. I love this palette. I can't wait to use it even more. It's gorgeous and stunning, and like, it's everything I wanted it to be. The Antiquity palette was the first palette that I used in the project. And earlier you saw that I had decluttered Subculture because of this palette, because this fulfills a lot of the same fantasies that Subculture did, but as I mentioned, you can pop these out. Really love the quality of the mattes. The shimmers in here are like not my favorite shimmers I've ever worked with. I think that's okay because those aren't really the star of the show, and I have shimmers that can make up for that whenever I really want to go there with this. But this palette is very, very pretty, and I'm happy to continue using it in my collection. This is the Viseart Petite Pro 5 Soleil. I love this color story. I love complementary colors. I love the red in here. I love that you can do like a sunset. Like, I love the shimmers in here. I like a lot this palette. This palette really does it for me. I love that there's like a little cream shade in here. And also I can remove these pans should I want to throw them in a custom color story that I put together, or if I need any of these shades to dupe a palette. Love that I can do that with these. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. This is my favorite Natasha Denona mini palette. I love the pinks and the soft pinks and the greens, but this shade, this is my favorite Natasha Denona eyeshadow. Like, the glitters in here, it's like, it's just, there's nothing like it. even in another Natasha Denona palette, Natasha Denona Mini Zendo. And I feel like these, and I used them together in the video that I did use them for the project. I think they play really well together and they really speak to each other. I really liked using this in the outer corner, but even like, it's so creamy and just like, it would be really pretty all over the lid. It's like a beautiful shade. I'm glad that these are the only two mini Natasha Denonas I own. I did have the mini Leela, but like I did not love that as much as I enjoy these two. But I definitely don't like this as much as the retro, but I still like it. And I think together, like these two, if I could like, you know, Fenty snap them together, this would be like a dream eyeshadow palette for me. I really like, I like both of these. This is the Natasha Denona 5-pan Coral palette. I used every single shade of these whenever I was using this in my project, and I thought that look was so sick. I really love this shimmer. I really love this purple. I can't wait to use this again. It looked really, really spicy on my green eyes. They really played off each other. So I really enjoyed this palette and I can't wait to use it again. I don't love this. This is the Natasha Denona Camel palette. I really like everything except for this. This shade right here is just a dud. I don't know if I got like a bad one, because I know that there are other people who like this is like their favorite eyeshadow palette, like if they're a neutral girl. But this isn't it. This one isn't it. Everything else in here is absolutely lovely. But I will be playing with the idea of like depotting these and putting other shades in the 5 from Natasha Denona. Like that's something that I intend on doing in the new year. Even though this shade isn't my favorite, I like that I have this. I really like these mattes in here, and this shimmer, this like highlighter shade is very, very pretty. This is the Chantecaille Butterfly Eye Quartet, and it is so stunning. It is a very simple thing. It is not the most exciting eyeshadow palette. There is something to be said for like the ease of use, the ease of blendability, the way that this is also going to look like on a very textured eyelid. They look so good. These are such great shadows. Now the price point for these is like not very accessible, and I don't really understand why the pans are so small when you're paying so much money. I do enjoy this palette quite a bit and looking forward to continue using it. Like I'm happy that I got to use it in the project, and I felt like I got to know it just like a little bit better. But like this was a really hard one to learn to love, because I was so used to thinking that eyeshadows had to be like extremely pigmented to be beautiful eyeshadows, and these aren't like that at all. And they're all shimmers, and like it taught me that I can put shimmers wherever I want. Like I don't need a matte in the crease. Like I can do whatever I want. And the elegant eye looks that I get from this are just like unparalleled and so easy. And I think that eyeshadows like this are a little bit underrated in the beauty community online, because like you're not getting that high impact. And like I don't think this is for everyone, but I also think that sometimes when we're talking about beauty on the internet, it feels like we're excluding people who would want this and shaming people who think that something like this is gorgeous. And I'm just here to tell you that there is value in this. And I know that what I'm saying might sound a little bit weird to hear, like saying that specifically, but it is very easy to get like lost in like the hype culture of the beauty community and liking something that the rest of the beauty community doesn't like, or if you like something that the rest of the beauty community doesn't get. It just feels like that you like don't know as much, and what you value in makeup isn't as valuable because like it's not what the general like beauty community likes. And I think that exploring something like this and spending more time with it like has helped me learn that, if that makes sense. Like the same thing with the Badass quad that I talked about earlier. Like it's not well liked by the beauty community, but I found like great joy in using it. There are people who are going to enjoy this, and it's very easy to dismiss it because it's not what's like popular online. But like I'm trying to create a space where we make sure when we're reviewing something, we think about who it could be for. Like, I think very rarely is there a product that I have touched where I couldn't tell who it would benefit, except for that Fenty Ease Blur skin tint. I did not like that. Saw no value in that. These are the last of my eyeshadow palettes that survived the project. Let's go through them. Now, if you watched my favorites of 2021, you'll already know that the Hindash palette is like one of my favorite palettes, just kind of in general. I like the versatility of it. I like that I can play with it with my single shadows, my like shine, like I can just do so much with this. The formula is really gorgeous. It is hard packed, which is like, that was like hard for me to come around to, but playing with this palette is like an unparalleled experience. And it's interesting because I understand that the appearance of it is kind of boring, but like once you get to know it and get to explore this, you're like, oh, I get it. Because it is intimidating at first. I do think that, but all you need to do is like give it some time and you'll come around to it. This is a beautiful palette. The Metropolis palette from Natasha Denona is it's a gorgeous palette. I just feel like because there are so many like creamy shades in here, like the cream to powder shades, I need better eye tools for that. And that's something that I probably will explore, but the shimmers in here, everything is really pretty. I really like this color story. I know it's like a bit overwhelming because there's like a lot, and then there's a blue here and a blue there, and it's like what, and then there's like a red, and then you're like, what's kind of going on? And it's like, is it a green palette? What is it? But I just think it's like it's I liked playing with it. I had fun playing with it. I love swatching them, like, and figuring out what I'm gonna do. Love this. Much like the Kryolan TV paint sticks, this is like a very specific thing. Whenever I'm feeling spicy and I really want to like do a look with these water activated things, I always have a great time with it. So like this just like fills a gap that I have in my collection for whenever I want to like do special effecty stuff. The Jackie Aina palette is beautiful and gorgeous, and I fell back in love with it again during this project, which was really, really nice. I can't wait to play with this again. It was so easy to use. I want to play with like some of the purples, but I played with this side of the palette whenever for misc, but I can't wait to come over here and play with this side of the palette. Oh my god, they just blend so well. Oh my god, it's like this is so good. Also so good and was a delight to use for the project. The Queen of Hearts palette from Colored Rain is so stunning, and I use this in the I can't wait to play with this again. This isn't like my favorite color story of all time, which I think is why this doesn't come into play often, but this perhaps is like my favorite formulas of eyeshadows. These are so good. My Sugar Pill Self-Made palette. I really like a lot of these. I don't think I've ever used this this gunmetal shade down here, but I really like these. I like that I can pop them out when I'm making my own color story too, but I also love that I have like a brights rainbow situation. I love having it. You can definitely tell that like I use this palette, like you can see that my brush has gone into, this is a used palette. It's not like my most used. It's been around the block for a while, but I really, really like having it. Thought about this for a while since I used this. This was actually the last eyeshadow palette I used in the project. This is the Muerte palette from Melt, and what I can tell you is like just even sitting here talking about the other shadows, I'm so excited to use this again. I'm so excited to use this again. I'm so excited to use this again. And you know what I don't have? I don't have that feeling for the Muerte palette. I think it's a really beautiful color story. I like the intensity and the depth of it, but I just don't think I don't think it's a perfect eyeshadow for me in my collection. While it is gorgeous, like this is so gorgeous. I think it's time for me to part ways with this because I know that there's someone else that I can pass this on to that is going to like love this palette, and it's just not me. And that's okay. Like I didn't think that I was going to get rid of this in the project, but I think I have to. I think that it doesn't make sense for me to keep this, and I don't think I could actually the other thing is I don't think I could really like dupe out this whole palette with my collection. Like I think this does add something to my collection, but this is like not something that I think I would ever, it's just like I don't reach for it often. It is beautiful. I like the looks that I've made with it, but I know that someone else is going to like love this so much more than me, and I want to give that person the opportunity to love it. These are all my glitters and single pan eyeshadows that are in their own packaging and things like that that survived the project. So let's reflect. Let's talk about the Slayfire glitter gels. These aren't going anywhere. I really, really love these glitters. I like that they have their own adhesive. I like that if the adhesive dries out, that I can buy more of the adhesive to like kind of reactivate them. These glitters are really nice. Some of them are biodegradable. There was some misinformation that happened with the company, and that happened like last year. But anyway, really like the glitters. I like the shades that I have. Would consider buying more glitters from this company. I like the impact of these glitters. Very lovely. This is just a loose glitter from Pat McGrath from one of the lip kits. That's fine. I don't think that glitter is something that I need to like declutter. I don't have like an excessive amount, and all the glitters I do have are like very different shades from one another, so that's okay by me. This is Synthetica from Pat McGrath. It's a single shade. This is the most beautiful purple I have ever seen in my entire life. It's stunning, so gorgeous. I live for it. This is the Astral White Pigment from Pat McGrath. Now I also have this in Mothership 1, but I like having this as a single. This is one of those like suspended glitters with no pigment, and this has a beautiful shift to it. Oh man, so gorgeous. Love this as a topper. This is the Gold 001 pigment from Pat McGrath. This was in one of the limited edition kits. The most beautiful gold that Pat McGrath has ever made. She could have stopped here and stopped putting all of those golds in all of her palettes. This is like the gold. This is the gold. This is the Ultra Suede Brown pigment from Pat McGrath. Not the most interesting shade, but still a very lovely formula and something that I want to spend more time with. Her sister, the Ultraviolet Blue pigment, is something that is going nowhere and is gorgeous, a gorgeous, gorgeous girl all by herself. This is from Pat McGrath. This is the Mercury pigment. This is really, really stunning. I don't know how much I'm going to like use this, but this is not like a suspended glitter. This is like a real shade. It is really beautiful. I need to continue playing with it to figure out like what I really want. Alanis Morissette style, but really it's no need for me to get rid of it. I really enjoy it. This is the Dark Matter pigment from Pat McGrath. I just like having a black I can reach for if I'm ever using a palette that doesn't have a black in it. And like this is like sits by itself and I can just grab it if I like need it for depth. This is like nice but not my favorite black, but it also like serves its purpose. This is the Lemonhead LA Space Paste in Houdini. I used this whenever I did the look for Patreon very briefly and like put it on my cheeks. I really love this. I like to use this as like a highlighter or also on the lids. It's like really, really pretty. Wild at Heart in the Tarte Chrome Paint Pots. This is really, really pretty. It's I always use it by itself, but I do want to explore using it with some palettes and some other things. I find that these like potted single shadows, I like just forget to reach for them quite often. So I'm hoping to prove to myself by continuing to use this that is something that I can change, like a habit I can change and remember to reach for this more. This is the MAC acrylic paint in basic red. I love that this is a true red, but a girl's gotta be honest with herself that this is beyond what I really do with makeup. And while I like to explore things, I don't think it's pertinent for me to keep something this on hand. And I would rather make do with what I have. So I'm going to pass this on. I have a sneaking suspicion that one of my drag friends will take this and run with it. So I just wanted to show you before I started putting everything away, like this has kind of been the deal. This is what my room has, like this is what my corner of my room has looked like for all of Messmas. So it really is something. I'm just gonna like step out of frame. So there's just kind of been like makeup everywhere. But what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put everything away. I'm gonna clean up everything. And I figured that you guys might like that. I know that I like watching people put things away, so I figured you might appreciate that. So what I'm gonna do is clean out the drawers first. And then I'm going to start refilling the drawers, and I'm going to do like an overhead situation for that. And yeah, so this should be like very easy breezy casual. We're cleaned. We've done it. So I mentioned this before, but this top drawer, I'm going to put a bunch of products in here that I want to focus on each month, but that'll be like another video for itself. And here is like single shadows, glitters, eyeliners, things like that. This is like the most multi-purpose drawer that I have. This one is like foundations, lipsticks, primers, powders that I'm not currently using. And then the bottom drawer is eyeshadows, and then this drawer is like all of my cheek stuff. So that's that. Okay, so if you're still here, you've made it through a lot of content. I'm proud of you. I would give you a cookie, except you're not here, and I don't have enough chocolate chips for that, because it would be chocolate chip cookies. What did I learn? First things first, I had a lot of things in my collection that had no business being in my collection that I didn't like. The more I could cycle through a category, the more confident I felt about moving things around. Like, more confident I felt about decluttering, the more confident I felt about liking things, right? Because for example, my eyeshadows, I did not get through all of my eyeshadow palettes. So I never got a second chance with any of my eyeshadow palettes. So it was much harder for me on the first go around to declutter something. So if you were to watch the videos, I go through some of my foundations 2 to 3 times before I'm like, I don't want these foundations anymore. I only want these foundations. These foundations fulfill a very specific thing in my collection, and I like them because A, B, and C, and I don't like these ones. These ones have A, B, and C wrong with them. That is why I don't want them in my collection. These are why they aren't for me. Like the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, I used it twice, and it got to the point where I was like, I see the space and place for this primer, but it is not for me. Like, I don't love this primer anymore. So the more I got to cycle through a category, the better I got to know it. Like the bronzers, like very quickly I knew which bronzers were my favorite. And something I learned is I learned how fast I would reach for some things the second go around than I would the first time. And like the glowy makeup serum became a very big favorite of mine. Primers is one of my smaller categories. I got through my primers maybe 3 to 4 times throughout the project. And the glowy makeup serum was like always what I was grabbing first. My Tom Ford bronzer was like always what I was grabbing first. So I can see my propensity to choose my favorites, and then that's it. And not that I want to get to a place where I have to feel like I'm forcing myself to use makeup. That's the point. If I ever pull something out and I feel like I'm forcing it and it's like not something that I genuinely want to use, then it doesn't have a space in my collection. It really did like teach me how I got to the place where I didn't have a relationship with everything in my collection. Also the fact that I had abundance, right? I learned that I couldn't even use my entire makeup collection in 31 days. Now, for me, that is too much makeup. Everyone can have their own opinion for their own collection, how much is too much for them, how much is not enough for them. That is a case-by-case basis, a person-by-person basis. Like, I can't say to another person that they have too much makeup, because if for them that's not too much makeup, then it's not too much makeup. But for me, this is like how I learned that like I have too much, right? I had my collection had gotten so out of hand that I couldn't keep it up in my brain what was what and who was where and what did what and did what the what thing. And like it's pretty embarrassing to say that some of these things have been in my collection for years and I had never touched them. That this was literally my first time touching them. The glowy makeup serum had definitely been in my collection for about a year. Never touched it. It had been sitting there. It's like liquid gold to me now. It's like one of my favorite things in my makeup collection. And it was just sitting there going unused. I will say like the primer category was like probably my favorite one to go through as many times as I did because I really like primer, and I think I found that out. Like, I was, like, getting very picky with my primers, but I also was starting to really see the benefit of my primers versus which foundation I use them with, which, like, obviously makes sense. But I think what would happen in the past is I got so used to just using one primer, even though I had so many primers. Like, whatever primer was my favorite at the time would be the one primer I would use, and it would be, like, the one that I would always use. And it just like, if the foundation didn't work on that primer, it was the foundation's fault. Now, I think foundations should work over any primer, right? But if a primer can like slightly enhance it, like, oh, that's the best. And I learned that throughout this project, specifically like with the glowy makeup serum underneath the Milk Flex foundation, which is a foundation I decluttered, but it looked the best over top of the glowy makeup serum. So like that was something I learned. And I definitely like learned a lot about my taste in eyeshadow and how it might differ in taste to some other people. Now, yes, I like Pat McGrath and I like Natasha Denona, but there were a couple things I just talked about where it was like, other people didn't like them, but I had a good experience with them and they work in a way that I find very fulfilling to me. And like, that's okay for me. Essentially what I'm trying to get to. I let the online beauty community at large decide how I felt about things without me knowing and fully understanding how I personally felt about things. A good example of that is the Badass Quad from Tom Ford, which is hated by the luxury beauty community at large. And I really like that smoky eye. And I don't have any other palettes in my collection like to make that black glittery silver smoky eye. And I really liked it. And so I'm allowed to have my own opinion on it. And I'm allowed to want to use my Tom Ford Badass Quad. I don't think it's a thing that you can buy anymore. But like, I learned that like I have to really seek out my own experience with something. And if it isn't what BeautyTube says is good, but it is good to me, that's fine. And that's like a very subconscious thing. Like that's back here, sweetie. Like I didn't know that was what was happening. I was going, that quad is bad because I thought that quad was bad. But then I used it and I was like, this quad, not bad. I had to like put two and two together to come to the conclusion that like I was being persuaded by the thoughts and experiences of other people with this item, not my personal experience with this item. So I think learning that was like maybe one of the most important things. Another thing that I learned, this kind of came down with like foundations, is that wow, I really like my favorites until I move on to another thing. So there's a lot of foundations that I imagine within the next couple of months are going to get used up because they were so close to being done. And I just like didn't finish them because I got a new foundation and I just like started using that one instead of the one that I was really liking beforehand. Another thing that this encouraged. Now, I typically only would wear makeup to like go out and see people or when I'm filming for YouTube. I had so much fun just playing with my makeup. So much fun playing with my makeup. So I would be holding up a palette and I'd be like, what's this color look like? I was like, I had almost every single video I had like swatches somewhere on me of just like eyeshadows, even if they weren't the eyeshadows I was using from that palette that day. I was like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Like, I feel like in my personal eyeshadow collection, my fingers should at least have been in every eyeshadow once. Do you know what I mean? I should have that experience where I'm just like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. And it just, some of my makeup, I like didn't have that. And so it was just so fun to play with makeup. I like learned that I thought I hated wearing pink on my face. And then I was like, you know what? Actually, I really like wearing pink on my face. Now, what the confusion was to me was that like a soft pink is a lot different than a hot pink. And so I don't wear a lot of hot pink, but now that I realize that I like pink, it's, you know what I mean? Like I obviously like pink. I like the color pink. It's my favorite color, but it's like, it was never like my favorite cosmetically to wear. So that is kind of like something something I learned during the project, but wasn't very important. Anyway, I learned that from playing with the makeup. So I'm going to play with my makeup a lot more. Today is the first day I've worn makeup in the new year because I did take a break. I finished recording on the 30th. I hadn't shaved. Let me tell you, I hadn't shaved my face for the past 4 days. I hadn't shaved my eyebrows off for the past 4 days. I was just like living my best life, not putting on any makeup. And I was kind of nervous to put on makeup today. I'm not even gonna lie to you because that was a lot. Putting makeup on every day like that was a lot. And also trying to be inventive and having to explore different color stories every day. Because a lot of people who wear makeup every day for work or whatever, they are the normal person. I'm not saying like people who are like us. they are like putting the same 3 eyeshadows on every day. That like wasn't what I was doing. That's like not as stressful as like every day. Like I'm encountering a new foundation with a primer that I've never tried before, with a concealer that I've never tried before, and a blush that I'm not really sure how to control the pigmentation of. Like it was like it was like a little bit stressful, but it helped push my artistry. Like I did some really cool eye shapes and cool looks throughout the thing. So I had so much fun playing with my makeup, and I was like, this is why you love makeup, dummy. Like this is it. This is the whole thing. This is why you wanted to buy all these things in the first place. You have a beautiful collection and you're not utilizing it because you think the next great thing's always around the corner. But sweetie, the grass isn't always greener. But also, let's use up what we have. Like, I can't wait to see progress. I can't wait until all of my eyeshadows have like that dusty ring around the pan, and like that's what I want, because that means I love it. Like some people think that loving your makeup is, and like, you know what, you're allowed to disagree with me on this. Like what I think loving my makeup is that it, not that it looks trashed, obviously. I want it to like be in good condition, but I want it to look used, because how do I know if I love something if I'm not using it? Right? And that was like a lot of this project. I'm like, I will just be playing with makeup when I have free time. Even if I'm not going out or anything, I will just like sit down, throw some things on, see what looks good, see how I'm feeling. And I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to explore that more. And I am going to do like weekly, just like, let's play with makeup. And it's not going to have a theme. It's like not really going to be getting ready with me unless I am getting ready for something. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but like this week is a little bit different because I was tired, right? I normally do Monday, Wednesday, Friday uploads. What I'm hoping is to do 4 uploads a week this year, but the 4th upload will be like a very inconsequential, like, I'm playing with makeup and here's what I want to play with today, or like, you know, those kinds of things. It also encouraged a project. I'm introducing this project. This is a backdoor pilot. If you've been paying attention, if you've been playing along, this is the backdoor pilot, okay? Because I don't want to make a separate video for this, essentially what it is. I was able to get all of my makeup into 4 drawers, and I have a 5-drawer IKEA Alex drawer. I am going to, every 2 weeks, cycle things into my top drawer. Like, I'm going to put a couple eyeshadow palettes up there, some singles, some lipsticks that I want to play with, some primers, some foundations, and these are going to be all the things that I want to play with for 2 weeks. Foundations, there are a couple foundations that are going to stay in that drawer until they are gone, because I enjoy them, but I don't want them in my collection anymore. So like, I'll keep playing with them until they go. That's what makeup playtime is for. It's to further getting to know my collection, because I still think there's some stuff in there that I can get rid of. Like there are some eyeshadows that I need to like touch down again that I may have been unsure of the first time, to really confirm that I don't want them in my collection. But I didn't feel comfortable doing that after 1 use. So this has inspired me to further this project, sort of, you know, much more casually into the new year. And beyond that, because I didn't include singles in this project, every 2 weeks I'm going to build my own custom palette and put that in the top so I can also play with some of my singles. And I did that today. I have a top drawer. I'm not gonna like spend time showing it to you in this video. I'll show you on Makeup Playtime, because this is a backdoor pilot. But I'll show you like what I have in my top drawer and like what I'm excited to play with this week. I will tell you today, as I was putting on my makeup for this, because I wasn't filming it and the pressure was off, it was so lovely to put on makeup. And not that I didn't enjoy putting on makeup. Like, that was another thing. This is like more of a YouTuber thing, less like the person who is not on YouTube that would want to experience their collection like this in some capacity. I really was uncomfortable putting on makeup. Like putting makeup on camera. It's something that like caused me some anxiety, and then I just did it for 31 days in a row. And so now I'll put on makeup anytime. Like I'll just do that. Like that's fine. Like we can watch me put on makeup. But for today, like to put makeup on for the first time without the peering eyes of my wonderful YouTube viewers and subscribers, it was like a delight to play with. And you know what happened? This is the true treat and dream. I picked a palette that I don't often play with. I'll just talk, like, so the mini Zendo, I really like it, but it's not something I played with a lot. And like, I used it today and I built a beautiful look. I think I look so stunning. I also used some stuff that I was like, only got like one shot at whenever I was doing the project. So like I really had fun playing with my makeup today because I was like, ooh, I remember using that, and ooh, I remember using that. Ooh, I wanted to use that. Like, ooh, I wanted to try that. So like that was really fun for me. And it was like really fun to do that off camera. And it was like in a very, I don't want to say like safe space, but like in a safe space, right? Like I was like, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. You know, really having a great time just like putting on my makeup today. Another thing I learned, this is again another like YouTuber feeling thought process, is that I don't always have to do the most when it comes to makeup. I can use 3 eyeshadows and that's enough for YouTube. And that's something like couldn't get over. Like it's something that I couldn't. And then early on during the project, I was really pushing myself to like try to innovate makeup. And while I think it's fun to, you know, to like do a look that takes a little bit longer, has like a little bit of different of details, I'm not the person who wants to sit and do my makeup for 5 literal hours. Like I don't want to paint my face orange and then, you know, I like do some like conceptual I'm a cone on the highway thing. Like that's not who I am. And like that's what I felt like I had to be to have an interesting bit of content. But over time, my subscribers and my viewers were letting me know that they really actually preferred like the beauty looks like this, because it was like, we can recreate that at home. If we have those products, we're like going to be more inclined to do that. So now I feel less pressure to show up on YouTube and do my makeup in such a way where it is like the most, because like this is such an elegant look. I would wear this again. Like this is so pretty. And I think some of you appreciate that like I use the mini Zendo palette you have in your collection. You're like, oh, I could do that look that Tom did. I really like that look that they did. I'm going to recreate it at home. So I'm seeing the value in in simplicity as well. So I realized that like I didn't always have to do like a hyper complex look whenever I was doing looks on camera. Now I did some looks that were a little bit more complicated and that were a little more angular, and like so I know I'm capable and can do that, but I also don't need to pressure myself if I'm not feeling it. And so that was something I learned. I think a good like final like thing that I learned is that now I don't believe in hustle culture, not at all. So I don't want what I'm about to say to be misconstrued as that's what I'm saying to you. But this was a big project to take on, and I did it. And I am capable of doing it in a way that was very successful to me, in a way that was very productive to me. Now, on the YouTuber side of things, I only lost subscribers when I did this project, and I've talked about that a little bit here and there throughout. That was tough, considering I was like putting so much work into it. I thought like I thought I was going to grow, but I persevered, and I know my makeup collection so much better than I did at the beginning of it, that this was so worthwhile for me to do it. And I don't think, for me, if I didn't do it this way, I wouldn't have done it. Does that make sense? Because if I didn't have the watching eyes, if I didn't say on camera that this is a project that I was going to do for 31 days, I wouldn't have, right? And I would have just continued to pick my makeup up, and I would still have all of the things that I decluttered in my collection because I didn't use them enough to make the decision, or I never had touched them, or and I wouldn't have all of these new favorites that I have that I didn't have before. Truly, honestly, yeah, like I just proved to myself that I could. And that is like the best takeaway that I can come with. Should you try something similar? I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you take a look at your collection and you look at 5 things and you can't fully express how you feel about them, other than I used that one time and that one matte was bad, then I would suggest trying it. Now, do you need to do it on camera? Absolutely not. Do you need to do it in 31 days? No! But I would recommend making an effort to get to know your collection a little bit better. And just, I'm not telling you not to shop, right? But this has definitely made me more conscious about what I'm bringing in. Like, in the new year, like eyeshadows, I don't know that I'm going to bring that many in because I can barely fit all of my eyeshadow palettes in the drawer that I put my eyeshadow palettes in. And to me, if it were to overflow out of that drawer again, then I have too many eyeshadows and I need to reconsider like what I'm bringing in. So yeah, I do recommend it if you feel like your collection is too large, Because the other thing about using your makeup, and if you're open to decluttering things as you find out that they're not for you, or they're not the best, or not what you want them to be, you're kind of making space to fill gaps as you find them. I learned that I really only have like one true neutral palette in any brand, and it happens to be a Pat McGrath palette. And I thought for sure that I was going to declutter that. And then I learned that like, no, this is like my only eyeshadow palette that is like this. And I'm really into neutrals, so this has value in my collection. Does that make sense? And I don't really need to bring another neutral palette in because that one really fulfills it. And I have neutrals in other palettes to have different textures, you know, like I can do that too. So I just have a really beautiful collection, and I learned that. Yeah, so I highly recommend doing something of the sort. Whether or not it is exactly like my project or it's some evolved version of it where like you're doing that every other day, or you're cycling through palettes every few weeks just to make sure that you know what you're feeling, or like your foundations, or et cetera, et cetera. I recommend it to get to know your collection better. And I would like to know if you end up doing content that is similar to this, I would like to see it. Let me know about it. Like, tell me about it. If you're doing it at home, tell me about it. Like, let me know in the comments how it's going, or that you're doing it. Like, I want to hear about it. Like, that's exciting to me because I found this such a fruitful experience for me. Just like exploring my makeup collection the way I had. I want to hear about your collection. I want to hear like what you're finding in your collection that's like beautiful and gorgeous, and like something that you like were so dismissive of before you really got to know it. And I'm not saying that I really got to know everything. I feel like there are some things that I really, really got to know in my collection, and there are some things that I still have a lot more to learn about the items in my collection. But this was definitely a good start for me, and so I can't wait to continue down this path. But literally, if you are going to make YouTube content where you are like trying to use all of your things, blank, 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 I want to see that content. Let me know. And also, I'm not asking for you to give me like credit or anything if you decide to do it. Like, no, I just want to see it. Like, I just want to like, I want to say, hey, I want to come and like encourage you, because if you do this in any capacity on YouTube, you're going to need that encouragement. And I want to be there for you. So, buddy, let me know. I think with that, the project, formerly known as Mesmus, is officially concluded. I have said my thoughts. I have said my feelings. I have decided to recommend that you do something similar, and here we are. Now, if you made it through this whole video, and you're not going to subscribe to me, that's rude. Okay? You sat through hours of this today, or however long it took you to watch this video, and you liked it. You clearly did, or you hate watched it. Subscribe to me. Come on. I'm just saying, you spent a lot of time with me. Spend more time with me. You like me. That's all I'm saying, is that you like me. You watched all the way to the end of this long ass video. You deserve to subscribe to me, and I deserve to have you subscribe to me based on the relationship we just created with each other. I hope you know that was like me being very jokey, but if you did make it to the end of the video and you had a great time, I would love to have you subscribe to spend more time with me. If you want to check out that Mesmus playlist, it's down in the links below, so you can see the project start to finish if that's something you're interested in, to see like how it evolved. Don't forget to like this video. I would really appreciate it. And if you think someone would appreciate this video, and like share it with them, we love a share. Tell people about me. Let the world know. I'm also on Patreon if you want to support me there. And that's it. So just remember to follow your hote. Oh my god, it's like so ridiculous. My little catchphrase is so ridiculous. Follow your hote, and you'll find me. I will see you in Makeup Playtime real soon. I will see you in another video real soon. Love you. Miss you. Bye, friends. Woo! Mesmus is over. Mesmus is over. The project is over. Everything's over. I am free.